Welcome, everyone. Seeing as there are no comment cards on items 4 nor 8, I would like to take those two items on consent without objection. 4 and 8. Seeing as there are no objection, those two items are on consent, which takes us to item 1. Mr. Sutton-Willis.
Item number 1, continued from August 3rd, 2015, a CAO report relative to the amendment to lease amendment number 250 with the City of Glendale for an area located within Griffith Park Central Service Yard.
Thank you. And we have Kathy Santo Domingo and Terry Sauer. And we also, so that's good. We have Recon Parks and CAO to report on this item. Welcome.
Good morning, Council members. Kathy Santo Domingo, Superintendent Planning, Construction, and Maintenance, Department of Recreation and Parks. Following the last committee meeting with regards to this item, there were a few questions that were brought up by the committee, basically with regards to the termination, CPI increases, and various other items. We did reach out to the City of Glendale, and they are agreeable to the changes that we're requesting in this particular contract. In that event, we would bring back those changes to Board of Recreation Parks. At this point, we would recommend to move forward with the agreement with these changes to the agreement.
Thank you.
And we concur with the department's we support the department's recommendation.
All right, and this would be in keeping with the requirements of the city charter in terms of moving it forward today and having, because we have a time limitation issue. And that is, if we don't move forward with the amendments that we are requesting that give Los Angeles greater protections on this issue, then the existing contract would move forward without those, what I think are significant improvements to the contract. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
But the action today will allow you to move forward and then request the department to submit the changes to the board and allow the board to execute, to approve the amendments and then move forward with the contract.
Thank you. And just for the record, because you can probably state it better than I can, some of the highlights of the changes that we are that we have requested.
Correct. The term of the contract remains at a 10-year term. The main item that was missing is with regards to the termination by the city. So the City of Glendale is agreeable to a 2-year notification for termination of the agreement, and also with regards to the recommendations made by the CAO with regards to the CPI increases, they're agreeable to both items.
Thank you. And just for everyone who's listening, this is in relation to the Central Service Yard over at Chevy Chase in the 13th District, and it is near a brownfield remediation, which is mandated by the federal government. This contract revision simply puts Los Angeles in a better position in terms of asserting our rights therein. All right, colleagues, any questions or comments? Okay. Well, then I recommend that we approve with the understanding that Recon Parks will rescind the matter for further review and resubmit to Council for final authorization. And as there are no public comments on this item, without objection, we will approve the report. Thank you. Thank you so much. Which brings us to item 2.
Item number 2, City Engineer report relative to the agreement with the National Park Service in regard to the Juan Bautista de Anza National Historic Trail to promote shared recreational and educational objectives.
Thank you. And we have Bureau of Engineering reporting, our very two capable representatives from BOE. Please give us the highlights.
Okay. Good morning, Chairman O'Farrell and distinguished council members. My name is Carol Armstrong. I am with the Bureau of Engineering on loan to the Mayor's Office as the LA Riverworks team. And since this is the first time we've been at the committee, the new committee, I wanted to acknowledge my team in the audience. We have Marcelino Asensio, Melissa Guerrero, and Theodora Trindle. So I wanted to make sure that you saw them too. And then I'm, of course, with
Deborah Weintraub, Chief Deputy City Engineer. Good morning.
And so this item here is symbolic and very important because it formally acknowledges the Anza Trail. It commemorates the 1775 to 76 Spanish expedition of the more than 240 men, women, and children who journeyed across the frontier of New Spain to settle Alta California and connect a diversity of culture and communities along a 1,200-mile corridor extending from Nogales, Arizona to the San Francisco Bay Area. So the Anza Trail provides an opportunity for people to appreciate and experience history as well as maintain their health and wellness. We are asking to have the trail certified along all 32 miles within the city, which means 64 miles both sides. And while the expedition path is rough, this is approximate, it's really important that we look at the whole river and do this because we have had some success in having pieces of the trail acknowledged through markers and things like this, but the idea of connecting it through the entire city and then also to and from Griffith Park is really important, and it shows a great partnership of our departments. So as you had suggested, we've gone and we've worked with the County of Los Angeles, and we have the agreement of key members of our River Cooperation Committee, the Bureau of Engineering, the Department of Recreation and Parks, and the Department of Water and Power, as well as the GM of the Department of Transportation that are willing to sign the agreement. And we hope to formalize this during the city's Hispanic acknowledgement of Hispanic Heritage Month, so hopefully in the first or second week of October, with something fun on the river.
Okay. Terrific. And so you talked about the miles. Any other agencies that have needed to be brought into this conversation or have been since you reported last? And I know the National Park Service actually came in from San Francisco at the last meeting about a year ago.
Right. So the federal government is supportive, and the county will be there, and we believe the state of California is supportive. So it should be a great example of multi-jurisdictional support.
Terrific. Can you expand on what other rights might be inferred upon the recognition of that? You mentioned acknowledgement of the trail. Can you articulate a situation wherein we might be able to go after funding for improvements and enhancements, et cetera? How does this enhance that profile for us?
Well, I think that we always look better prepared for funds the more coordination we show at the local level, and the more we recognize all of the different, the multi-benefits along the LA River Trail system. So by having this federal acknowledgement, a formal acknowledgement really helps us. One example may be a Federal Lands Access Program grant. We've tried to go for those funds in the past, looking at the Sepulveda Basin, which is federal lands, but now that we're looking at the entire river having this federal designation, it may potentially raise the profile of the federal attention and also help us as we make connections such as the Rim of the Valley Corridor Study Area, which we've asked that the entire river within the city be included in that footprint. That's also a National Park Service project. And
this is a notion that I'm thinking is very likely, but I don't want to assume anything. But with the recognition of this trail in an official capacity, nothing would get in our way of improving the land for passive active recreation, preservation of open space, et cetera. I would think that it would conversely help in that regard. But are there any restrictions, once it's designated, that would limit our ability to improve?
No, you are correct. It's really symbolic in nature.
Okay. Terrific. Thank you. Colleagues, Mr. Blumenfield.
It all sounds great. I'm excited about this. I just want to get a sense from you how it's getting split up in terms of like which department's doing the interpretation, which department is doing the natural areas. Is it? I know because you have the engineering, parks, and transportation. So how is that? How are the responsibilities being split up?
So the way that it works is it's on a project-by-project basis, and we have projects now, and there is a decision made at the time that a project is developed on whether or not to incorporate a marker to commemorate the trail and whether or not to incorporate interpretive signage and things like that as each project is done. So as of now, we have on a project-by-project basis, we sort of develop the boom, we call it, who's going to build it, who's going to own it, who's going to operate it, and who's going to maintain it, and that is formalized in a use agreement. So at that point is when we determine who's got the responsibility. And as river projects go now, sometimes they are city projects, which are maintained by Rec and Parks, or potentially by DOT or with a contractor. They could be by the county, they could be by a nonprofit organization. So to date, it has been relatively piecemeal. But one of the things that our River Cooperation Committee is tasked with is developing a river master use agreement, which will streamline that for the entire river within the city of LA. So we will formalize who has responsibility across the entire river within the city. At this point, it depends. It's on a case-by-case basis. Should a new project come available now before that agreement is finalized, we would have to designate that responsibility in the use agreement.
Because obviously we all want it to be as streamlined and easy as possible and have, a clear understanding who's doing the interpretive signs, who's doing what. Great.
Gentlemen? No? All right, then I recommend that we approve the motion without objection.
Thank you.
So approved. Thank you. And now we'll go to item 4. I'm sorry, 5. 3. I'm really skipping ahead. 3.
3?
Yes.
Item number 3, City Engineer Report relative to the status of various projects connected with the Los Angeles River Revitalization Master Plan.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Good morning again.
So, and just, I think that it's really good to have a fresh presentation for our new colleagues on the River Committee. So thank you, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Thank you, Councilman O'Farrell, Chairman O'Farrell. So as background, the City Council adopted the LA River Revitalization Master Plan in 2007, and at that point, they designated the city engineer to be in charge of implementation through the LA River Project Office. And I lead the River Project Office, which is now also known as the LA River Works team. And the instructions to the city departments also included a variety of different activities in implementing the River Revitalization Master Plan, which included establishment of the River Revitalization Corporation, which is now self-sustaining, and also the development of the River Improvement Overlay District, which was adopted by your council last year. So there's a lot of different activities going on across the city by the different departments. And so part of my job is to come on a regular basis to this committee and report on the status of different projects associated with the master plan and related efforts. So this report here basically lays out some recent happenings since we were last here, and one of those is the grand opening of the Sepulveda to Kester LA River Greenway segment, which is on the South Bank in Council District 4, and also the groundbreaking of the LA River Greenway segment from Coldwater to Whitsett on the South Bank, which is in construction now in Council District 2. And then also to let you know that the Lankershim-Barham segment is underway in design right now by the County of Los Angeles, and the Barclay to Maywood segment in downtown LA is being led by Metro. So those are some key happenings. Also, there's a variety of different projects going on along the river, and there's different proponents of those projects, and I've listed some of the key ones. I'm not going to go through every one. But basically, you can see where the asterisks are. These projects need funding. So as these state bond funds are becoming available again, it is typical that we will always try to prioritize these river projects in those. And this is just to give you an idea of where they're located and the status. Some key federal activities I hope everybody feels wonderful about. The Army Corps' Civil Works Review Board approved the LA River Ecosystem Restoration Project on July 16th in DC. This is a huge, huge deal. The Army Corps of Engineers channelized the river in the name of flood protection at the request of the city and the County of Los Angeles in the 1930s, and you cannot change the concrete in the river's channel unless the Army Corps says that you can. So the city has been a cost-sharing partner in this study since 2006. So now, almost 10 years later, it's gone to the highest levels of the Army Corps, and they have said they approve it. So that is huge. And the next step in that process is it will go for a 30-day state and agency review. That is the final EIR. The draft EIR went public in late September of 2013. And we are anticipating that will go for 30 days, and then there will be some, if there are comments received, they will respond to the comments. After they've responded to the comments, there will be a 60 to 90-day period when the chief of engineers will write a chief's report. The chief's report is the golden thing that everybody wants because it makes your project eligible for congressional authorization. So we will be working with our congressional delegation to get the project authorized in the next WRDA bill, which is the Water Resources Development Act bill, and then, of course, seeking federal appropriations. So we'll be working with our appropriators and our authorizers in Congress soon thereafter. Other key happenings, I think since we were here last time, I'm not sure if Deputy Mayor Romero was in her position, but she is now, and she continues to lead on the river issue. We report directly to her, and she convenes monthly, want everyone to know she convenes monthly team meetings, at least 2, with council and department staff, and that we now have our Board of Public Works Commissioner Heather Repenning, who is our river lead. And then the LA Business Council released a report on the river, as did the Urban Land Institute. And the Urban Land Institute with SCAG is now hosting an ongoing river and rail meeting, which is the first of its kind and really important, particularly given the rail and river projects that are happening at the same time and that could help each other. Also, to let everyone know, Bloomberg Philanthropies awarded $1 million to our Department of Cultural Affairs for an art biennial project. It's called Current, and it will include art along the LA River, which is an important priority of the city's master plan. And our LA River Cooperation Committee continues to meet and approve projects, and the next meeting will be October 5th. And at the end of July, LA District Commander Colonel Kim Colleton relinquished her command to Colonel Kirk E. Gibbs. We are certainly sorry to see her go, but we're very excited to have him come on board. And then I think everyone's seen in the press that there is going to be an announcement of some kind regarding an integrated design vision for all 51 miles of the river. And our LA River Corporation has started that. So we're very excited about new ideas as we continue to deliver on the promises we've already made. Again, there's been a lot of participation in the annual LA River Recreation Zone program. I think they just had the 2nd annual boat race this past weekend. So things are happening. We're very excited, and go Team River.
Very good. Also along with that, this body passed unanimously moving forward with enhanced increment financing along the entire stretch of the river in Los Angeles. I've been meeting with our county supervisors to explore the possibility of an enhanced increment financing district for the whole entire stretch, the whole 51 miles of the Los Angeles River throughout LA and LA County. This month, we will bring aboard our consultant for that, and in the coming months, we will map out the whole plan to be able to move forward with an actual district for the river, which it's the first in Los Angeles, if not the state. And so that, everything complements everything else. In terms of the whole alternative 20, that's 11 miles. That's 1/3 of the river in Los Angeles. We'll need a match. We'll need a local match. Part of the local match could come from an EIFD, if one, we get that, once we get that approved, or other matching sources. But the important thing about EIFDs, and it was co-introduced with Bob Blumenfield, is that this focuses on the entire river through Los Angeles, and as I mentioned, perhaps even beyond, to establish a permanent revenue stream from already collected tax monies to be reinvested right back into the same location that are paying the taxes. And it would be on increased property values. The incremental increase in the rise of property values would actually fund river projects, and including brownfield remediation, including habitat restoration. Monies could also be used for the creation of low and moderate income housing. So this is something that this body is focused on along with everything else. So thanks for your report. And I am going to make some recommendations, but first, colleagues, questions. Mr. Price.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too want to just appreciate the overview of the efforts that you're undertaking. And, Mr. Chairman, applaud you, too, on the EIFD, because it can be a new redevelopment tool, if you will. And I think the river is an excellent place to begin that discussion, but we want to explore other places around the city also that might be suitable for that kind of injection of resources. And so, congratulations, keep up the good work. We know it's going to be an exciting project when completed. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Price. Mr. Blumenfield.
Certainly want to echo everybody's excitement about the overall river projects, and everything that we're doing on the river and the EIFD is great. One little thing and then a bigger thing, a question. I noticed on it's very micromanaging, but the Aliso Creek Confluence Park has an asterisk next to it, and it says, and you said that means that there's not funding. My understanding was that the full funding for that was there, at least for phase one. Is there something I should be worried about?
No, you're exactly right. The full funding is there for phase one.
Okay.
Right. So we are trying to find the additional funds to complete the other phases.
Great. And then you were saying for the next WRDA bill, which you're trying to get this through the Army Corps, which is it's a 5-year thing. So 2019, I guess, will be when that comes up.
So the WRDA bill is at the discretion of the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. And the last one prior to 2014 was 2007. So they could come up with one in the next 7 years. Hopefully they will come up with one more quickly. We've been working with the committee, and they're indicating that they will because it's bipartisan. A lot of people of both parties have similar projects in their district. So
I think it's a 5-year authorization, but they extend it when they can't get agreement or something. So, but it seems like we have enough time to not worry about that at the moment. So
Okay.
they get it before then. But who knows? You were talking about some of the comprehensive stuff and the Frank Gehry stuff. Maybe you could walk us through that a little bit. That sounds exciting. And what kinds of things he's involved and they're involved with, and all across the river, including the headwaters of the river. What are they planning?
Okay, how much time do you have? No, we're very excited about the Frank Gehry initiative. It's my understanding that he was approached about a year ago to see if he would be interested in doing something along the Los Angeles River, and that he has taken this time to do his due diligence. So it's my understanding that he gets approached a lot of times, all the time, to get involved in projects, and he doesn't like to say yes right away until he does his research. So he's had his team do some mapping exercises and things like that. As far as I understand, there aren't any designs yet because this is a process. And so the idea is to start a process, and his interest really is in an integrated design vision across all 51 miles of the river. He understands that the county has a 96 plan and the city has a 2007 plan, but cities to our south haven't engaged as much in the planning exercise to date, and so he wants to see if there's a possibility of integrating all of those design efforts. And again, we look forward to hearing more. I would refer folks to the River Revitalization Corporation to find out more, since they approached him initially, and again, we're very excited. Go Team River.
Great. That's a good thing.
But you said the headwaters. I don't know if that answered your question.
I always like to throw the headwaters in because that's, remind people that the river does start in the 3rd district, and then when we're thinking of these comprehensive plans, to be able to make sure that we have something nice at the headwaters.
At Canoga Park High School, go Hunters.
Exactly. Okay. One other thing, the details of the LA River Recreation Zone program, how is that going to be promoted with the general community?
So the River Recreation Zone program is a partnership between the city, the county, the Corps, and the MRCA. So the Mountains Recreation and Conservation Authority runs the program, but they do so at the approval of the county and the Corps primarily, and in partnership with the city. And it was done for a year as a pilot, and it was successful from roughly Fletcher down to Barclay, and then it was approved for a 5-year program. So it runs in the Glendale Narrows in that segment from roughly Memorial Day to mid-October. And then there's also a program that happens in the Sepulveda Basin. So whereas the rec zones are limited to those areas right now, in the future they could be expanded depending on what happens with access and things like that. But LARiverRecreation.org, MRCA, is the lead on that.
Yeah, thanks. And this is the fourth year in a row of Sepulveda, and the 3rd year in a row at Elysian Valley. So, and I look forward to the zones are still open until Labor Day weekend. So, sometime in September we'll have a report on how the numbers and how the attendance was. I look forward to that. Mr. Rue.
I'm very excited about the LA River Revitalization Program, and thank you for the update. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your leadership on this. It's a big plan. I look forward in the coming months to delve more into it and supporting everything that I can, what your efforts are, and working with my neighbor and my chairman to do everything that I can to help support.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rue. So a couple of points I'd like to make, instructions. I'd like to note and file the report because this is a regular ongoing report, but I'd furthermore like to direct the Bureau of Engineering and the River Revitalization Corporation to come back to Arts Parks Committee on September 21st, which is the next regular hearing in relation to the river, with a status update on the integrated design process proposed by Frank Gehry and Associates in collaboration. And also direct the Bureau of Engineering to provide a full list of completed projects. I think that'll be helpful in each district since the adoption of the master plan in 2007. And then to add to that, could you elaborate next month on the Urban Land Institute River and Rail Initiative? That's something that I think this committee could hear a lot more about, and it's very intriguing and holds a lot of promise. And then in terms of the background, a description of a project that includes costs in relation to the Frank Gehry initiative, time frame, completion, any other relevant background data. I gather from your report, Dr. Armstrong, that it's in real free form right now. So as much information as can be forthcoming a month from now would be helpful. And then, lastly, direct the Bureau of Engineering to report on the floodplain draft map, an update on that. And I know that it was heard in this committee that the draft map was discussed last October in Arts Parks. And just to reiterate, it's just a draft map. But I think to keep the public informed on where that's headed and how that looks, and that would be, I think, very helpful. I think that those are most of the instructions that I have based on this report. Thank you so much for all the great work you're doing. Deborah, you didn't have a whole lot to say?
I'm
Not this time around. But your leadership at the river has been just tremendous over the course of a decade plus, and we wouldn't be nearly where we are without your leadership, Deborah Weintraub.
Thank you.
And the same for you, Dr. Armstrong. So thank you. And without objection, we will note and file and require the same instructions that I just gave. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We will now go to item 5, since we moved 4 on consent. Item 5.
Item number 5, CAO report relative to the lease agreement between the City and Western National Parks Association to operate a visitor center and interpretive retail store at the Helmand Kwan building and at El Pueblo Historic Monument.
Thank you. I know we have Chris Espinosa, the general manager of El Pueblo, and Janelle Irving from CAO, and you, sir, as well.
My name is Jim Cook. I'm with the Western National Parks Association.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. Would you like to?
Sure. Good morning. Janelle Irving with the Office of the CAO. The item before you is a lease agreement between the City of Los Angeles and the Western National Parks Association to operate a visitor center and an interpretive retail store in the Helmand Kwan building located at the El Pueblo Historical Monument. The term of the proposed agreement is 5 years with one 5-year renewal option. WNPA is a 501c3 nonprofit corporation who brings a unique ability to provide education and information to visitors about the local history of Los Angeles and connect these stories to themes in the state and national park system. As consideration for the lease, WNPA will provide community service to the public through ongoing operations of the visitor center, as well as community programming in the South Plaza of El Pueblo. Additionally, WNPA is making a significant investment in tenant improvements to build out the visitor center and retail store, including the installation of flooring, lighting, and a new heating and air conditioning system. The total rental value for the Helmand Kwan building is $754,000 over the 10-year term, which is addressed by the community benefits of $3.56 million in direct and indirect aid over the same time period, as well as the one-time tenant improvements in the amount of $624,000. The proposed lease is consistent with the city's nonprofit leasing policy in that the rental value of the retail space is exceeded by the annual contribution in services from the nonprofit. As such, our recommendation is that council approve and authorize the general manager of El Pueblo to execute the proposed lease agreement with the Western National Parks Association. At this time, Chris Espinosa and Jim Cook with WMPA is here to provide more information and answer any questions.
I'll keep it really short, council members, but good morning. Chris Espinosa, General Manager of El Pueblo Historical Monument. This is about 3 years worth of work. And the Western National Parks is just an excellent organization, running many visitor centers throughout the western U.S. I had the privilege of attending some of their visitor centers, and it's just a top-notch exhibition. As you know, El Pueblo Historical Monument is on the National Register of Historic Places. And one of the things that I've been trying to build over there is the understanding of our deep history and all the great cultures that have gone through that site, and to also promote us as a park site. And I think this alignment with the Western National Parks Association will raise our visibility and improve our service to the community. We have Jim Cook here, the Executive Director of the Western National Parks. He flew in from Tucson, Arizona to present before you today. Jim, could you tell me a little bit about the project and your organization?
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, and welcome, Mr. Cook.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman O'Farrell and council members. I'm delighted to be here, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. As stated earlier, Western National Parks Association is a nonprofit education partner of the National Park Service. We develop products, services, and programs in support of 67 national parks in 12 western states. And throughout our 77-year history, we've helped millions of visitors to those parks in enhancing their experience and helping them understand the significance of those parks. I'm joined here today by our board chairman, James Brooks, and other key partners such as Marty Dumpus from the U.S. Forest Service, Russ Guinea and Jane Beasley of the LA County Parks and Recreation, and Kate Kirkendall from the National Park Service. This project has been in development for over 4 years. It's a very exciting milestone today for us. The program that we conceived is self-sustaining through our 77-year proven entrepreneurship. Our in-kind contributions, as stated, at $3.5 million over 10 years, really is to focus on engaging the visitors to El Pueblo. And some of our target audiences are the hundreds of thousands of fourth graders that go through there every year, and other visitors, the locals, to help them understand and appreciate the significance of this site. Our 4 major goals are to create a gateway to nature, history, and culture via the public lands, such as the national parks, forests, city parks, and county parks. Number 2 is to interpret and amplify the diverse American stories found in El Pueblo, connecting them to the larger American story. Third, to highlight the Western perspective of our nation's history as reflected in the El Pueblo neighborhood. And finally, to help connect an urban population to nature and provide them opportunities for a healthy lifestyle. We will accomplish this through educational outreach programming in collaboration with our partners, including the city. Number 2, our educational products themselves tell the story of that will help tell the story of El Pueblo and, of course, our other partners. And finally, through interacting with our visitors, we hope to engage them in, again, the significance of El Pueblo. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. As you're all 3 speaking, I'm just mindful of something. I had the great privilege of going to Acadia National Park in Maine over the summer. They have a world-class visitor center there, like a number of our national park systems and a number of our iconic, destinations, whether it's a national park or not, a historic monument like El Pueblo. We know that visitors from across the world come there, and it's been my opinion for a long time that or sometimes they're underwhelmed, right? And I've always felt that El Pueblo needs a boost. It needs some sort of world-class presence that's worthy of its history and all the great things that people are doing there. I, for one, am very excited about this. And I think that in terms of enhancing our public facilities, as I mentioned, that are worthy of the people that are responsible for, investing and running them and working there. I'm very excited about this project. A couple of questions. Can you explain the relationship, how this will work in terms of the historical monument vis-a-vis the national park system? Or can you just talk a little bit about that? That's one thing that's unclear to me.
Sure, the relationship between
and how that will work in terms of...
Well, the number one mechanism, of course, is the lease that's in front of you today. Mm-hmm. This lease will enable us to open up operations. As you probably know, next door is the office for the National Park Service and state parks as a platform for those rangers to engage the urban core. So this is a building on that concept, but having an even more robust presence in the El Pueblo by engaging the visitors. So the technical relationship would be vis-a-vis the lease. However, our intention is to have a very robust programming partnership. So with the city at El Pueblo, who has, as you know, amazing programs practically every day, we see opportunities to partner with Chris and his team, but also building on existing programs through the Forest Service, such as Generation Green. These are youngsters in high school age that help the U.S. Forest Service engage the urban youth and urban and diverse audiences. So in collaboration with them, we intend to activate those in really the perfect opportunity where there is such a massive population center, where there's amazing, of course, connectivity and public transportation, and the significance of the site is really what brings so much relevance, I think, to the operation. I don't know if I'm answering your question.
I wanted to mention just two things.
Please.
We're going to be renting space to the U.S. Forest Service, and we're really excited to have them in our city facility. They're paying rent, and they're going to be a programming partner, and they're also a financial partner to this effort. And then the Rim of the Valley study with the national parks, we worked very closely with them, and in the environmental report that came out, they include El Pueblo as part of that footprint. And recognizing how important the establishment of this city, the historical underpinnings, and then its connections to the river. And so those are two really significant ways, other than this direct relationship that we have, but it's just some building upon itself.
I think it's very exciting. And will El Pueblo maintain creative input in terms of merchandising, advertising, promoting, et cetera? And maybe the details are in the lease agreement, but I gather, again, that the relationship is going to be great. But if you could...
I must admit, El Pueblo's ability to do retail isn't very good. City contracts and having the staffing expertise to really be sharp in that realm, we don't have it. And so this partnership, they've been doing it for many, many years, nonprofit products, and been very successful in it. And so we've talked about entering into a separate intellectual property agreement in which we could produce and use our name, and then they would help us produce articles for sale. And so this is something really exciting for us because our name is really choice, our logo, and people know us from all around the world. So to be able to distribute mugs and shirts and books and other matters, to be really strong working with them.
I think that's a critical component right there, what you just said, to this whole deal, agreement. Colleagues.
Yeah, it sounds like an exciting project, and it's good to know that this is really a prototype, I guess, of what can happen in other areas. And I just want to encourage again on that community engagement piece. Don't leave out these community-based organizations. I mean, those should be the ones you really go to, building up relationships, developing some greater awareness, I think, really on the ground. But it sounds exciting, and we look forward to working with you on that.
Mr. Roof.
When will the visitor center be complete? Do you know?
We're targeting the spring or summer of 2016.
Well, let us know, because I'd love to come and visit.
Terrific.
Oh, we'd love to have you. And it's an existing site, the Helmand Kwan building. And we use it for, meetings, but it's really underutilized. So really, it's just working out the interiors. So we don't have to build a new building.
Terrific. We're good.
It all sounds great. Just technical question, why the 5-year lease? If you had done the 3-year lease, you could have avoided coming to council and all the headaches that go with that.
It's a 5+5, so a 10-year lease, and really shows the dedication of the two partners. We've been working together, I think he says 4 years now. We're in it for the long haul, and we want to go through the process and make sure, because this is really something significant where instead of having people go to the parks, he's bringing the parks to the people by putting this visitor center in this second largest city of the nation. So we're in it for the long haul. And he also has a really strong performance tracking sheet, and brought on a consultant to look at all these indicators of success to prove that this project will do well. And so that's something that we'll be able to look at over the 10-year lease term.
So, Bob, you're aware that only city staff laughed real hard just then. Just want to make sure. All right. Thank you so much. We have some comment cards on this. If there are no further questions, we'll go to the comment cards on item 5. Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet. We have Jane Beasley with James Brooks, and I didn't confuse Jim Cook with James Brooks, did I, sir? No, okay, thank you. And then followed by Russ Gehry.
Good morning, I'm Jane Beasley. I work for the Los Angeles County Regional Park and Open Space District. Roughly 23 years ago, the County of LA passed something called Prop A, which created the Open Space District that includes all 88 cities, including this not so small one, as well as all the county. So what we've been doing for the last 23 years is granting funds for recreational park projects throughout the county. We support this project. One, we already have money in El Pueblo, but two, there's a relatively new grant to Metro for the Father Sarah Park, which is a little tiny piece of grass out front of El Pueblo, but it connects to Union Station. So the connection to Union Station, that money is already coming forward, and Metro is moving that project forward. And we support this because it brings parks, exactly what you said, to the people.
Thank you. And then James Brooks.
Thank you so much. I serve as the chair of the board of directors of WNPA. This is my 10th year on the board and my 3rd year as chair. And over those 10 years, we've seen some hard times, obviously. We've seen some good times. But we've seen a real trajectory of growth in our ability to provide support for the 67 parks that depend upon us. And we've gone from maybe from $3.5 million to $4.5 million a year in direct and indirect support through our operations in these visitor centers. And that, at the same time, as we've watched our organization grow, we've seen visitorship at national parks decline. We've seen the demographics of that visitorship become even more narrow than it traditionally has been. Increasingly white, increasingly old, and increasingly two people, right? Rather than families, rather than the kind of diversity that we hope for. And so we really feel like this center here in El Pueblo is a great testing ground for, can we reverse this really very negative demographic trend in visitation and get kids from the kind of diverse communities that LA represents out into these 67 parks or more, because we're going to be partnering with state parks as well. And having the Forest Service next door, we really can showcase the kind of opportunities that are out there and get kids involved from thinking about careers in the parks and going on to become visitors. So we're delighted that the council seems to be supportive of this, and I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Next we'll have Russ Gehry, who will be followed by Marty Dumpus, I think, and Kate Kirkendall.
Good morning, Chairman O'Farrell and council members. I'm Russ Gehry. I'm the director of the Los Angeles County Department of Parks and Recreation, and we also support this lease agreement, and I'm pleased to say that Los Angeles County Supervisor Hilda Solis is also in favor of our participation in this center, and should your council approve this lease, we're prepared to become an active participant and also bring funding to the project. We operate right alongside the city in South Los Angeles, in unincorporated pockets, East Los Angeles. We've done a great trail project planning effort in the Northwest San Fernando Valley with the city, and we have a website that we're inviting all of the cities and other entities such as national parks, U.S. Forest Service, state parks to put all their trail information on. If we're a partner in this project, we would probably have a kiosk at the center that would help people learn about the vast trail system that we have in the county. We're working right now on the Park to Playa Trail, which will run from the Crenshaw District of Los Angeles to Marina del Rey and allow people to actually hike this 12 to 15 mile trail to get to the ocean. And this would be a trail, again, that could be highlighted at this center. We have 3 nature centers that are within 12 to 15 miles of downtown Los Angeles, and we're prepared to bring people and animals that we have at those nature centers down to this center in El Pueblo and really bring those parks to the people of the community here. We think this is a great partnership, and we're ready to strongly support this effort. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gehry. For the record, did you hear that? Bring money to the project. I'll say that again. Bring money to the project from the county.
Right, that's a winner.
Let the record reflect that.
My vote.
Kate and Marty.
Hello, my name is Kate Kirkendall. I'm the Public Information Officer for the National Park Service and for Santa Monica Mountains National Recreation Area. Although we are actually the nation's largest urban national park, our visitor center is located some distance away in the Calabasas area. And so we are very supportive of this concept of having a visitor center that can orient the visitors to El Pueblo, not only to the national park system as a whole, but also to the great network of open space that we are privileged to have here in LA County. Like Mr. Gehry mentioned, we have a great network of parks, and so it's not just for the national parks, but orienting people to open space all over the area. And we fully support it, and we're also financially contributing to the project.
Write it down. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Marty Dumpus, and I work for the Regional Office of the Forest Service. And about a year ago, we were fortunate to have a chief's review, and we brought him to the Pico House. So our Washington office is very familiar with this partnership, and it's very unique for us because this is involving city, county, 2 federal agencies, as well as the Western National Park Association. There's not too many associations like this anywhere in the country, and this is, in our opinion, a very vibrant area, pretty much the hub of LA, because not just with this, Gateway Center, as Mr. Espinosa said, we're also investing in office space. We're looking at having an urban research forester station there. We're also going to have an urban forester working out of there to work with the city plants program, the LA River Revitalization. And we also, right now, the President's Initiative, More Kids in the Park, and that's also targeting 4th graders. Well, you got 400,000 of them coming through El Pueblo every year, and working with the Park Service as well as 7 other federal agencies, we're going to be able to build upon that program. And that's one of the things that's been lacking, is that we always look at sometimes bringing people to the forest, to the parks. But what you're doing with the LA Revitalization, and we're helping wherever we can, is you're bringing green space, open space to the people so they don't have to travel as far. And with all the public transportation at the hub of Union Station, you just walk across the street and you're going to get exposed to more things than people have been exposed to in a long time. So thank you.
Thank you. Well said. Thank you. Resources, money, investment. Those are all words we like hearing. Seeing as there's no other public comment, I would like to recommend that we approve the CAO report without objection. Okay, so moved. Thank you. We will now go to items 6 and 7 and take them together.
Item 6 is a motion, O'Farrell, Wesson, Harris, Dawson, and Rue, relative to the Human Relations Commission and other local agencies to report with a plan for the city to engage in conversations and activities with regard to race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, diversity, and multiculturalism. Item 7 is a motion, O'Farrell, Wesson, relative to the request for the Human Relations Commission to report on recent and past accomplishments, organizational changes, and identify strategies and resources to meet the challenges in the present and near future.
Thank you so much. And we have Patty Villaseñor with a couple of her colleagues here. Welcome.
Thank you, Councilman. First, thank you for having us here, and it's nice to be back before a committee after many years absent. So thank you. I want to introduce you to two of my commissioners, Board President, Vice President Mark Rothman and Commissioner Irene Tovar. I wanted to start by giving you a brief history of City HRC, since we're a very small and unique commission within the city and not necessarily the best public relations about ourselves. So many people on the ground know about us, but not many people above know about us. In commemoration of August 11th that just happened with the Watts 50th, we were a product that came out of the Macomb Commission report that was issued about a year and a half later. At that time, the Macomb Commission report had asked that the Human Relations Commission be created in order to monitor intergroup relations throughout the city and to help reduce tension and violence based on discrimination and racism. So we were born. We have an 11-board volunteer commission appointed by the mayor. And for many years, all we had were our volunteer commissioners and an administrative assistant. In 1975, an executive director position was given to the commission, and that was all it had until after the '92 riots. In 1997, Executive Director Hicks was appointed, and he was given the funds from the general funds to expand the staff, with the point of making a field staff, having experts that are able to go out into these various communities and address the situation of violence and tension that's happening throughout the city in certain neighborhoods. Predominantly, police community relations was at, and still is, the highest issue. Through the 1999 and 2005 were the heyday years of human relations. We had a budget of over $1.7 million. We were able to give out micro grants to other nonprofit organizations who were promoting human relations ideals and addressing conflict mitigation issues at middle school and high school levels. We had a larger staff. We had a full administrative staff, an executive director, and we had risen to almost 9 human relations advocates, which are basically our field staff. We had one in almost every council district at that time. With the budget crisis that happened in 2009, 2010, we were basically slashed. We were identified as a non-core agency. We were consolidated with the Commission on Community and Family Services, the Commission on the Status of Women, and the Human Relations Commission, and a new department was created for Human Services Department. We lost our executive director, and we lost all our administrative support at that time, and 3 human relations field operatives. A year later, that department was eliminated. In order to preserve the human relations structure and its intent and ideal, council people voted that we would keep 3 field positions and a senior project coordinator position and place them in the community development department and take them off the general fund and put them on CDBG. You know what happened to CDD. It is now no longer there, and we were then shuffled to the Housing and Community Investment Department, where we still maintain 3 field HRAs and 1 senior project coordinator. But along with that, we did get an administrative assistant, and we did get a senior project assistant. However, we also inherited 4 additional commissions. So even though we do have a little bit more support, we also have many more commissions to work with. So we don't have 100% dedication to the Human Relations Commission, but we are very strategic in what we do, and we feel that we've been very successful in our endeavors. We are predominantly all CDBG, but we are moving towards general funds since many of what we do with the Human Relations Commission cannot be covered under CDBG. And I think that's the challenge that's facing the Commission right now. How do we continue these core services and work with LAPD and these communities and still be successful and grow those programs? So that's in a nutshell of where we are today. I can give you more, but I want to let my commissioner speak, and if you have any questions, I'm here.
Thank you.
Well, perhaps I will. Thank you. First of all, thank you very much for having the opportunity to be here and address you. I think we're dealing with the most crucial issue in our nation and in our city. I like to believe that we're here to celebrate the diversity of our city and hopefully our nation. But I don't need to tell you the crisis that we're facing right now as a nation as well as locally in relationship to how do we get along with each other. And it's a very serious one. And unfortunately, we don't seem to have been able to, after many, many years of efforts of talking about the dignity of every human being, the responsibility that we have to each other, we still have a great crisis in that relationship. And as you have heard Patricia mention, we do not have the funds to do justice to the issue of relationships. And right now, you already know through the media, the relationship between, which unfortunately has been a very constant one, between policing and minority communities, let alone the issue that is in the forefront every single day, every minute in the media of how do we deal with people who are immigrants or citizens who are treated as immigrants and are arrested and families are separated. And how do we not allow minorities to be political scapegoats during this political year? So your attention to the needs and the function, the ideal function of this commission is so important. So I hope that you will do everything due diligence to ensure that we are able to handle these crises that are occurring. Hopefully, we won't have to redo what happened 50 years ago with Watts Rebellion, as some people call it, or riots. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm, as Patricia introduced me, Mark Rothman, the second Vice President of the Commission, and I want to thank you all for having us here and having us be part of the agenda. Councilmember O'Farrell, you're particularly familiar with our work because you were instrumental in helping us institute the Day of Religious Pluralism, which we're very much looking forward to the second anniversary coming up in just a little more than 6 months. And what that did was create a foundation for us to have a conversation amongst that diversity that my co-commissioner, Mrs. Tovar, talked about, a dialogue between the tremendous number of religious groups that make Los Angeles the tremendously diverse and exciting city that it is. That's one example of what we've accomplished in just the year that I've been on the commission. A second thing that we have is a really critical youth ambassador program where youth from every single council district are able to participate and learn about the levers and structures of our city government, giving them an idea of agency, of an opportunity to have their voices heard. That year culminates with a trip to Washington where they can see on the national scale how we both mirror what we do here in LA and how they can have a larger voice in terms of impacting their nation. I can tell you from personal experience, as a high school student, I was an intern for a congressperson for a few months. I got high school credit for it. It was a phenomenal experience to understand how our government is responsive and at times not responsive, and what I could do to make a difference. And I'd like to see many more students have this experience. We're at the stage right now where we fundamentally have to have a bake sale in order to be able to fund these students to be able to go to Washington. And this year, because I guess we didn't make enough cookies, we're not going to be able to send them. So we're going to miss that Washington trip this year. Though the program itself will continue locally.
Mr. Rothman, when is the trip?
The trip is intended to be at the end of the school year.
Right. It usually goes up in April, May, depending on where the schedules fall for the schools.
There's still time to go next April or May if we get on the fundraising.
Of course.
Yeah, okay.
I never say never.
All right.
We'd love to have that happen. We'd love to make that happen. I love those interruptions. We'd love to make that happen. And the last thing, again, as my co-commissioner, Mrs. Tovar, talked about, is our role in creating a stronger and more positive and constructive relationship between our citizens and our police department. I want to talk generally about how we can provide a kind of second voice or alternative portal of access for citizens to approach and discuss with us their concerns about the city in contrast with the police commission. We have a little bit of independence in a way that the police commission does not, and we can initiate and engage in dialogue perhaps in a way that that commission cannot. And that was driven home to me in a very powerful, unforgettable meeting that we held in Watts in South Central with at least 35 citizens coming forward in over an hour and 10 minutes. They each had, I kept notes, and we each had 2 minutes like it was a regular commission meeting, but it was held at another location. The amount of pain, the amount of frustration, the sense of injustice that citizens are feeling because of the way they're reacting and interacting with the police is phenomenal. And it's not constructive. I'm not saying anything new. We've seen it again and again, unfortunately, in our history. There's a movie out now that talks about it, brings us back to where our history was even almost 30 years ago, and yet we're repeating that again today. We want to continue with these kinds of meetings. We are continuing with these kinds of meetings. We're putting together a report that we want to deliver to City Council and to other city leaders to help them understand the kind of dialogue and again, some suggestions for how we can improve that. These are the things that we're working towards. These are the things that I think deserve even greater support beyond just being able to speak, but talking about how we're funded, where do we stack up in the overall hierarchy of the city government, and where we're going to be working. We're looking forward to working individually with each of you and your other council members to see where we can affect change for the better. So thank you for having us here this morning.
Thank you so much. Ms. Villaseñor, something to add?
I just want to acknowledge my staff. I have 3 phenomenal staffers that, I'm always, people come up to me and say, the Human Relations Commission, you guys are everywhere. How many staffers do you have? And I have to say 3. And that's Germana Cilian-Sava, Francisco Ortega, and Sheldon Cruz. They do an amazing job of trying to be everywhere that we're requested and that we're needed. And that's not easy when we have a city of 4 million and we have 3 human relations advocates to serve them. We work hand in hand with LAPD and their new community relations division to try to impart with those new officers how to talk and walk with community members, not to be a partner with them in the true sense of partnership, because I think that's sometimes lost, not only with LAPD, but with other agencies, that we like to throw around the word as of partner when we really don't know how that's defined when it comes to communities. And many times communities feel that we're being very condescending and that we don't know how to listen. And part of our role is to be there and try to get everybody at that table to listen. And it's not just about identifying who's not at the table, but we actually go out and find those people to bring them back to the table to make sure they're there. So we have a very unique role, not only to our partner agencies, but to communities that we serve. And it's all done with 3 human relations advocates. I always like to imagine what we could do with double that, triple that. If we had a budget that is less than 1% of LAPD, I don't think we would have the issues we have, because we are addressing the community's needs and trying to let them know that we actually listen. And we bring it back to our elected officials and those decision makers to say, let's look at this situation not as a challenge, but an opportunity where we can make the city of Los Angeles a better, stronger community as a whole.
Well, thank you so much for this verbal report, and as you probably know, I've had extensive conversations with Council President Wesson, and several colleagues seconded the motion from last month, and I think the full City Council is on board with doing all we can in this current environment. The issues have been brewing either just under the surface or occasionally popping up over the surface over the years, but in the last calendar year, especially since the death of Iselle Ford, there has been such a tinderbox in the city of Los Angeles in terms of everything you just described. And so we're taking this issue very seriously, and we do want to move forward with not just a dialogue, not just a documentation of some of the finer points you made, which I want to see, so that we can then synthesize these into real resources, possibly, and real action, and really work hand in hand with all parties, all non-governmental agencies, city departments, et cetera, to just see what role we can take, an active role, into encouraging a greater sense of understanding and cooperation and partnership. I love the whole sort of focus on relationship-based policing now. Community-based policing has been very effective in many, many of our neighborhoods, but we know that realities on the ground often shift and they change, and relationships are where it's at. Even with the community-based policing, it's the relationship so often that the senior lead officers or those on the force who are really out in the communities all the time to bridge misunderstandings. And then you throw in the whole issue of countering violent extremism. And I agree so much with you, Ms. Tovar, in that our diversity should absolutely be our greatest strength. That's who we are. And so we have to do all we can, I think, as policymakers to make sure that that is the ideal that we can live. And so I think that dealing directly with all of these issues are so important. And also, I think that we kind of hit a sweet spot this year with the whole religious pluralism movement. I would call it a movement because I think that has helped catapult things forward in ways that I didn't even expect, in a good way. So, having said that, I'm going to have some recommendations to make with a sense of urgency because we want to really get to work on some of these things. But before I do that, colleagues, questions? Yes, Mr. Blumenfield.
Sure, and then certainly I want to echo what you're saying about the vital importance of the mission and the great work. And some of you, Irene, have known for many years and appreciate all that work. Just to get a sense of the commission and the goals for the next year, what would you say are the sort of the 3 top concrete goals for this next either next year or the next 5 years that you think the commission should be tackling, and how?
In consideration of staffing and our
given the
resources
that you have,
it's obviously law enforcement, community relations. Police community relations is one of the key foundations. We've seen in so many communities that it's extremely volatile right now. And if you layer on previous histories, if you layer on race, there's a lot of disenfranchised youth. It is a very tenuous situation. So that's definitely one. We are working on a community policing report, and we are basing that on and challenging communities that are coming out to our roundtables and forums to not just come with your concerns, but how do you fix them? Be part of the solutions. How can we address them? So that will be coming out mid next year, second quarter next year. So that's one of the issues. And then part of that how do we implement what we've heard? How do we work with LAPD and elected officials to implement some of those recommendations? The next would be pluralism, interfaith, and how that grows out, because that is such a fragile state, depending on the religious entities and federal mandates that are going on, et cetera. So that's something that needs to be watched on multiple layers of governance as well as locally. The other is youth. How are we going to work with youth to re-engage them and realize that civicness and leadership are one and the same? And they need to participate and be part of solutions in order for their communities to improve. And so that is another big goal for us. How do we work with youth in a much more in-depth way?
And are there some concrete actions that we should expect to see over the next year 5 years that we should look forward to along those goals?
Oh, I think so. Yes, definitely. On the pluralism and the youth, we're still developing what that plan would be. On law enforcement, police, community relations, we're a little more along on that, and that would be very easy to bring to you at any time.
There's one that I would hope that we will become more and more engaged, because we don't see it right now on the above, but on the surface. And I know that because I'm right there where the community is. And that is the one that I mentioned to you, the consequences of using a political year to focus on a group. That I'm already feeling in the field, in the community. That can, and I hope I'm wrong, I cannot tell you how I hope I'm wrong, that does not create the tension that will become very serious, because that's in the whole city. And right now we're just talking about the city of Los Angeles. This issue of focusing on one group as a political illness of this nation is creating a very serious problem. I just want to leave with one last note, and that is that I was a witness to the Watts Rebellion, or Watts. I was working then with a program called NAP, and its basis was in Wrigley Field. I saw the National Guard. I saw the rifles. I saw the tension. I never want our city, my hometown, to ever face that again. It's a very, very dangerous and a very, as a nation and as a city, it's tremendously mortifying because of the value that we say we place on human beings. And so I'm pleading with you that you allow us to be those people that can be in the front lines of minimizing tensions that should never have been there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rue.
I want to first thank you for all your work. And I remember when I was at the county about 10 years ago, I thought, the county's big, but what the work you guys did and how much you were in the community was amazing. And I was wondering, because even though you guys are doing so much work, and now I realize I haven't seen as much of you lately, and I was wondering why. And little, I'm so glad for this report, because now I realize why. And especially with the rise in homelessness, poverty, and crime, and the events nationwide, what we need you more than ever. And thank you for this report, and I know you guys are going to come up with another report, but I hope in that report, you gave us a great broad overview, and some of your problems, but like Councilman Blumenfeld has talked about, I would love it if you could come back and give us some sort of written report about concrete actions, concrete recommendations, and a planned strategy. It seems like you're at HSID now?
Yes.
Okay, that's where you're finding it. And that maze you gave us.
We're at another home, HSID, and they've been very supportive of us.
So if you could kind of, so we could continue this discussion, right? Let us know what you need, or where you should be, or of course, we still the economy's recovering, but what would be ideal? Where would you like to be? How would you like to be structured? Things where we could concrete things we could sink our teeth into and figure out how we could help. So I'd really like that. And I don't know. With that said, would it be possible to continue this?
I'm going to
okay, all right.
They're going to come back with a written report. I'm going to incorporate this conversation and some of the recommendations that I have as well. Yeah, thank you. Mr. Price.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your interest, your leadership on this issue, and thank our citizen commissioners for their service as well. The commission has had a historic role, played a historic role in really building bridges and facilitating communication since its founding. And so I'm glad to know that even with limited resources, there certainly is a will and a commitment to continue. And I agree with my other colleagues, we want to be more supportive of that effort going forward. But just two quick questions. You referenced some event that the commission did, I think you said this year or last year, and you're going to do it again this year. It was very successful. I was just curious what that was. I missed the beginning of it. And talk a little bit more about the Youth Council. I know that's under your purview now. How many students are involved, how students get involved. I know we welcomed them in City Hall a couple of weeks ago. But how is that process playing out into the neighborhoods? Thank you.
Two events that we've had, and I want to talk about them both because I'm not sure what you were referring to, was, I believe it was April 21st, was dedicated as the Los Angeles' official Day of Religious Pluralism. We had a press conference in the media room behind council chambers, and then we were able to present a number of speakers in front of City Council and had an official resolution passed. And again, thank you, Councilman O'Farrell, for your leadership on that. So that was and it was a foundational event that had impact far beyond what we anticipated, which has allowed us to start talking about what are the next concrete steps. Where do we go from here? The second thing we did was that on June 3rd, we met at a community center in South Central, and we took testimony from citizens about their experience with the LA Police Department. Mrs. Ford's mother was there, and she was able to speak, as well as several dozen other community members. And that was the beginning of a process that we have laid out, where we will be having two other forums like this, as well as sort of days of dialogue structured roundtables, where we will have other ways. I'm sorry?
Any dates yet for those activities?
No, we're actually at our next commission meeting, we expect to set the dates. We're waiting for the organizational subcommittee to come back and provide recommendations.
On the youth ambassador issue, we are not responsible for the youth council, although we would like to be. We do have our youth ambassador program. We've done that for going on 4 years, with an average of 15 to 25 students, because the funding is all fundraised, so it depends on how much we can fundraise, how many students we have. If we couldn't fundraise for 1,000 students to be part of this program, we would send 1,000 students, because one of the issues is that we don't want to turn away a student because they cannot afford to go to D.C.
How are they selected to participate? How are they selected to participate?
It's about $2,500 per student because of the trip to D.C., but that includes a 9-month curriculum based, as well as trips to different leadership opportunities and different volunteerism opportunities. So it's a comprehensive program. They dedicate 2 to 3 hours every month. They come to a class or a workshop on one issue, whether it's civic engagement, finance, budget, leadership, what have you. And they also get to meet real-life leaders in various professions throughout the city of Los Angeles, whether it's entertainment, to elected officials, to nonprofit leaders, et cetera. So we really try to give them a large overview of what they can do with their own skill sets. And then it culminates with DC. So it's about $2,500 per student, and it's not based on grade. They have an application process where the student does fill it out. They have to produce 3 essays and 2 recommendations, one from a student, one from school, and then one from someone in the community, as well as their academic attendance records, because we want them to commit to this. Their parents also have to sign a letter of commitment that they are going to get their students to and from these workshops. So it is comprehensive. As I said, the number of students is dependent on how much money we can raise. If we could raise for 1,000, 10,000, we would have 1,000 to 10,000 every year going. Unfortunately, it's averaging about 20 to 25.
Thank you. To tag on to your question, Mr. Price, how is this publicized? Is it publicized through LAUSD schools, or?
We go through LAUSD schools, as well as the different archdioceses and different charter schools as well. We want to make sure that we cast as large a net as possible. We do go to different council offices and ask them to please send out the applications on our behalf, and then we start grading them in criteria, basing them on criteria met.
Terrific. Well, thank you so much. I would like to incorporate some of these requests into when you come back with a written report, and that is maybe, well, not maybe, I'm going to suggest that you describe the relationship with county. There's a county human relations commission as well.
Right.
Love to be able to maximize, all of that potential in terms of collaborating with the county, reduction of duplication of efforts, et cetera. And you really laid out the challenges, but maybe looking forward over the next 5 years so we can anticipate some of the challenges that are coming our way and be prepared. And then in terms of technology and data mining and how can we utilize technology to help with, where the hot spots are, for lack of a better term. And then you already mentioned several programs initiated by the HRC. Maybe just list them and take a look at the motions that were introduced. We call out for some of that already, if that could be incorporated into the report. And then to Mr. Price's point, if there are any forums that are being organized through the Human Relations Commission, if you could provide a schedule, even if you don't have the location yet, but just a schedule for us, that would be terrific. And then basic demographics. And I've actually requested some of this before, so I have a sense in my own district, but citywide, some of the most marginalized communities, zero in as much as you can, the most traditionally underrepresented, marginalized neighborhoods. And then scope, a general scope of work and what's requested. It could lead to a budget request for implementation, et cetera. We're perpetually in deficit, but that doesn't mean we can't advocate for resources. So I think that would be very helpful. And then a little bit more about the Youth Ambassador Program as well and what that takes. Articulate that on paper. And I would love to help in some way get these kids to DC in April or May. And then what other pending reports that you have in the works? Maybe just include that as far as the written report back to this committee. And I think that's enough. That's plenty.
Sure, I think we have room for a couple more things.
I put in here jobs, education, opportunity. It's like the big three that the underserved neighborhoods just don't get enough of.
Agreed.
And so, or adequately, focused attention on. I'm sure that'll just pop up everywhere, those values. So if you could report back just as soon as possible. I put in here 30 days, but maybe 60 is more realistic. But we do want to move forward on, exerting some sort of assistance on this very, very important social issue.
No, we're very happy to be provided this opportunity, so I'm sure we'll try our darndest to get it to you even before 30 days.
Terrific. And Mr. Ru, did you have something to add?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, in one of the other committees that I sit on, Councilman Bonin had the department regularly report back. And when they had nothing, they would just maybe introduce staff. I think especially right now, in light of all the things that are happening in our city as well as the nation, if we could have some sort of, I just want to continue our dialogue. I don't want it to be that we have to ask for a report, but even if you have nothing to say or just want to give us a quick update on fundraising progress of the program or whatnot, if we could maybe, for the time being, I don't want to make it official, but if we could have them come in on a regular basis, once a month, once every other month, I don't know what the proper would be.
I think that's definitely what I'm asking here, and I asked specifically to come to this meeting and then a written report for the next. So I think that's a great suggestion and one that I intend on doing anyway, but it's good. And I think that, we're kind of laying down the gauntlet saying we want to really address these issues in a very real way, not in the abstract.
Right.
And I want the written report to actually produce a set of goals with a sense of urgency and an action plan. I want this to actually, turn into an action plan that we can then, go out with and move forward. So.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. So then I recommend we adopt the motions, and we'll
see you in 30
at
days?
the next, in 30 days would be terrific.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Councilman.
Thanks
For all your work. Thank you so much.
It's an honor to serve.
Mr. Chair, for the record, you continue in the items in committee, waiting for the written report.
Adopt the motions and request HRC to return. Just keep it in committee.
Keep it in committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for that clarification. All right. So we will now move to item 9. And we have, oh, sorry, please.
Item number 9 is the Department of Rec and Parks report in response to a motion relative to the future management and operation of the Greek Theater, including but not limited to various community concerns detailed in the motion. And Mr. Chair, I'd like to note that there's a typo in the agenda. The makers of the motion are Rue and O'Farrell.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for that clarification. Yes, Mr. Scholl and Ms. Israel. And I know we have CAO and CLA if need be. But please.
Good afternoon, council members. Mike Shaw, General Manager, Department of Recreation and Parks. I'm joined on my left by Vicki Israel, the Assistant General Manager over our Concessions and Partnership Branch. Let me start by just giving a brief overview on not so much the history of where we got to, but really kind of going forward since April and decisions that were made in April and why, and then the status, of course, of where we're at today. And then I'll touch upon some of the items in the report and then give that back to the committee to ask questions. But on April 15th of 2015, this year, our board approved the department going forward with the open venue model. And subsequently, there was on April 28th, there was a hearing held at City Council where I gave a verbal report on those actions of our commission at the request of several council members. So we were moving forward with the open venue model as we discussed at our board in April and as well as with the full City Council on April 28th. As part of that moving forward was to release 2 major RFPs for the operations portion of the Greek Theater, which to actually be able to implement the open venue model. First being was to have a RFP out for a venue management company for which we would have a company that oversees venues, concert venues, things like that on our behalf and would since act as our agent at the venue, but would not be in the role of a promoter, but in a management role working at as an agent of the Department of Recreation and Parks. The second RFP was for food and beverage for that concession as well. So those were the 2. So since the April meeting, there's been 2 RFPs released, both for the operations portion of the open venue model for a management company, and the second being a food and beverage RFP. We released the RFPs for the management company in May, on May 20th, and on July 27th, we received 2 proposals, 2 responses for that management RFP. Since then, the department has completed the interview process and completed evaluating the proposals and are ready to make a recommendation, or prepared to make a recommendation at our September 2nd board meeting of our Board of Commissioners for the Department of Recreation and Parks. Many of the items that are outlined in the community concerns are also outlined in our request for proposals document, which is attached to the council. I put that in as a response to the attachment. So the actual RFP that was released is here, and we can get into that as well. But I did want to attach it for your information. So we're here today to answer questions on some of the other items that were contained in there. Again, we're ready to issue a contract, assuming that our recommendation to issue a contract. That is a 1-year contract with 2 1-year options that we're hoping to schedule before our commission on September 2nd, and that would be to award a recommendation to award the management contract to SMG. And I'll just let you know that we have 2 representatives present here today in case there's additional questions that you may have for them. But Steve Tadlock, Regional Vice President for SMG, as well as Michael Kraus, Regional Vice President, are both here today to assist in this presentation if the committee would like them to address them. So as part of as what was outlined in the RFP, which was outlined in their response to the RFP, and also reiterated in the recent motion, was issues around traffic, noise, security, maintenance, parking, and shuttling. Those continue to be concerns of the community, and they're obviously at the highest profile or priority of the department to make sure that all those issues are addressed. We feel that we've got the right recommendation for the management company here to implement everything we need to address each of those items. I can get into specifics on each item if that's the direction the chair would like to go, or if you would like to just open it up for questions. So,
Thank you, Mr. Soul. How long is the list of items?
There's approximately, I think, 6 or 7 items that are.
Okay. So here's what I would like to do. The mover of the motion is Mr. Rue. This is, of course, an institution, an iconic location in his district. So what I'd like to do is turn it over to him for now to start the questions and comments. And if he wants to hear those details, then he certainly can.
First, I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, and colleagues in the department. I know you guys have been working on this issue for a while, and I know you've had public hearings as well, where hundreds of people from Los Feliz area, as well as the rest of the city, came to testify. I really thank you for entertaining asking the department to come back and report again. And thank you for the report, and thank you for your prompt response. I think we gave you 30 days, but I think you came back in a week, if not even that.
48 hours.
Yeah. So I really appreciate that, Mike. So I read the report. I just had a couple of quick questions, and I know these are answers that you already answered to my colleagues as well as the community, but and as well to myself, but I wanted to ask again for the record. On the first page of your report, you had one thing about board recommends RAP to self-operate the Greek open venue for a minimum 2 years. I thought it was under the understanding it was going to be 1 year, and depending on how it goes, do a different kind of RFP. Can you explain that?
Yeah, that actually was, because there has been so many hearings on it, that was actually copied verbatim out of the board action taken back in April and was then further reported at City Council. But the idea was to create a 1-year contract with 2 1-year options. We felt that if under the first year of operation, if it goes in such a way that it is not advantageous for us to go towards an open venue model, that we immediately begin and report back in November of 2016, which is what I believe it says in the board report, on a recommendation of whether or not we continue on. Now, that just means releasing a new RFP. So we felt that we would need those 2 years to actually redo the RFP process for an exclusive operator.
The concert year starts when?
I'm sorry?
The concert year starts when?
April 15th.
April, okay. So by November 16, you'll had operated for about 5, 6, 7 months.
It would be 1 full season. Okay. So the concert season generally runs between April 15th and the end of October.
So in order to do the new RFP, it would take another year?
Based on our experience, yeah. I mean, it would be, for exclusive operation, it would be a very highly competitive RFP.
How many months would you need into the first year to know if it's successful or not?
Well, the revenue numbers will be, I mean, it's not like you need to wait on the revenue numbers, on what the net revenues are. I mean, we'll know that pretty much going forward. I mean, there won't be too much we won't know after that first season. It's not, the accounting end of it's done almost on a nightly basis.
So what I'm asking is, in the middle of the first season, if you feel it's going south or it's not going well, can you re-RFP it out?
We could. We could start the process earlier if it was so bad. Yes, we could.
Okay. And on page 2, current concerts that is currently at Greek. Is it 73 or?
Last year, I believe there was 73 concerts put on by Nederlander, yes.
And you guys are projecting about 70?
Yeah. That's what we based the numbers on.
Another question about fines on page 3. For each concert, what's the rough revenue or net revenue for the event?
Well, we're projecting for 70 concerts, nearly $5 million. So if you divided that by 70, I mean that would be
60,000.
Yeah, I mean that would be roughly the number.
Is there any way, these noise violations, first offense, warning, second offense, 5,000, third offense, 7,500, and 10,000, How did you guys come up with those numbers?
We researched some other venues. We also, talked to the industry about this, and, it's something that we thought we could try. I mean, these are, I'm not sure what the existing fines are, or if there are any under the current operation. We're hoping that we'll never have to use those, but they are there to be an incentive to the promoter as well as the artist to watch the sound levels.
So what's the current fine structure, do you know?
I'm not aware of what that is.
Okay. If we could find that out, and
we'd have to request that from the Nederland. We'll put that request in, though.
Okay. And if it's possible to possibly increase the fine structure, I don't know if it's too late now or.
It's not too late. I mean, it can be adjusted if need to be. I mean, it can't be. I mean, there's a line, and
right.
We tried to be reasonable, but also punitive. I mean, we wanted to make sure that it was noticeable without going too far to where it might discourage people from playing the Greek. I mean, it is a fine line.
So, I mean, if you could, that's why I asked about each event. I mean, it's hard. I'm sure some are successful, some aren't. So, if you could come up, see if there's ways to increase possibly the noise violation. The next page, I had another question about, can you explain on page 4, it says, your projected anticipated net revenue. You said $3 million for 50 concerts, 50 events, and 4.8 for 70. Do you mean to go from 50 to 70? So for 70 concerts, it will be a net of 7.8 million, or?
No. It was the way the numbers were, and again, starting on page. At the very bottom of page 3, and then on page 4, we tried to outline the numbers that we used to drive those projections, so that those are included in the report. So those are all I just wanted to clarify that's what all those bullet items are. No, the projected revenue is 4.8 based on 70 shows.
Okay. Versus 1.9 we got last time. So it'd be roughly.
Last year was 1.9, almost $2 million, correct?
So if your staff could sit down with my staff to go over the various calculations to better understand.
Absolutely.
That would be great. And for the community concerns, when it comes to traffic, you wrote here that the current parking folks will be hired by the new management company?
Well,
can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, certainly. The current operation is not, it's a subcontracted operation by the current operator to SP Parking. So they're the same, I mean, they're a very large company that does parking and traffic control, Dodger Stadium, Greek Theater, lots of large venues. And all I stated here is in the SMG's proposal, what they submitted, that they had conversations with them, and they are intending to continue that relationship. So there should be virtually no noticeable change in that operation. It'll be the exact same contractor that's doing it now based on their proposal, with one exception. We're planning on to have additional shuttles more than what's operated now.
Okay. When it comes to noise, again, is it the same? Can you explain that? Is it subcontracted out again?
Same thing. It's all subcontracted out. And again, in SMG's proposal, they have entered into discussions with the current, which is Schubert Sound Systems. So their part of their proposal is to use the exact same sound system that's there today. It's under lease. They are just going to continue that lease.
So same equipment, same personnel?
Equipment, probably even the same staff.
Can you tell me the number of violations for the current management company? I mean, rough estimate, do you know, sound violations? Do you have that?
For Nederlander? No, we'd have to request that information from them if they have it.
You can get that so we can...
we'll ask for it, yes.
And security, is security different?
Security could be, a lot of the security there, some of the security there is off-duty, so police, LAPD, so that would probably continue. Whether or not it's the exact same security firm, there might be a change there on the actual,
So in security, there might be a change in firms.
Yeah, but it would still include LAPD officers and so on and forth.
When it comes to maintenance, one of the community concerns was, in the back of the Greek, there's a lot of cut trees. that were never, they were cut. I don't know for what reason. I know we talked about it. And they wanted that cleaned up. So.
Yeah, that's an interesting concern. I have 2 requests into Nederlander Concerts to clean that up since they cut them down.
So Nederlander cut them down,
Yes,
not
sir.
the city?
Yes, sir.
Do you know why? I mean,
the trees were dead.
Okay.
From what I understand, they were dead.
Is that the city's responsibility or the?
That was within their responsibility to do so, but we were not contacted prior to them cutting them down.
So are they going to be clean?
I certainly hope so.
Okay,
It's their responsibility to do that. We've put 2 friendly requests into their operation to ask them what their plans are, but I've yet to receive a response.
Yeah. One more point in my motion that I forgot to clearly delineate was community concerts. And I know we spoke on that. Can you speak on that? About the previous operator had a couple of concerts allotted for community run concerts.
Yeah, no, we fully intend, which is mentioned in the RP, we fully intend to continue to support those. In fact, I know that there's representatives here today from the folks that work with the current operator on Eek at the Greek, for example. We've already blacked out a date for that concert to happen. It's on a Saturday night in October. But we fully intend. One of the requests that we put in, one of the items that we put in the request for proposals was for them to strategize on how they could help fundraise with the community to offset the price of putting on those events, because there still is a cost associated with that. But we fully intend on pulling out every stop to make sure that those costs are minimized or even eliminated.
Mm-hmm. Right. I believe we talked about revenue sharing. So, do you know for those community events if they generated any revenue for the nonprofit?
I do not know that I don't believe that they did, but I don't know that for a fact.
If we could follow up on that, the community concerts, if they generated any revenue, and what a new management company would propose to help with that, with the community, and possibly even increasing. I believe there's 3 right now, right?
Yes, there's currently 3, and we've one's a graduation, high school graduation. So.
Okay. So if we could preserve that, or if not, increase it by another. So from what I'm hearing, it seems like, or why don't I ask you, a lot of when it comes to traffic, parking, noise, possibly security, it seems like it's going to be all the same staff. Can you also maybe mention the Greek theater operational staff? Are they going to be brand new when a new management company comes in, or?
The management company, yeah, for the most part, they would be new, correct. I don't believe that of course, they don't have a contract, SMG does not have a contract, so we haven't began the process of employee retention. That needs to take place, but we can't do that until once I've executed a contract with them. But that's a process that we go through on all of our. So whether or not there's anybody on the management side that stays part of the team, I can't answer that today, and wouldn't be able to answer that until we've gone through the process, or at least begun the process.
So assuming everything goes well, everything runs to how it's supposed to be run. So, if the current traffic mitigation folks, the current parking, noise, and all these people are the same subcontractors, and everything runs well, what's the difference between the current management and the new management? What would be a difference?
Revenue share. It's based on the exclusive operation, and I'll speak to two different items. One is based on the current operation. If you compare, what the history of the Greek theater has been on our revenue share, it's extraordinarily low. It's between 6% and 8%. We're looking at, in percentages as high as 40 up to 100% of the revenue coming into the department. That's the difference. The management company is being hired as essentially a consultant. They're getting a fee from us to manage it. They're not getting a major revenue share piece of it. We did incentivize them inside of the RFP for revenue share on sponsorships and box seating, but they get no revenue share on some of the larger income drivers, which are parking, concessions, and tickets. They don't share in any of that. So it's all about revenue share. We're doing the direct contracting. We get the majority of the revenue.
Yeah, so that's, regarding those numbers, I'd love for my staff and your staff to get together so we could better understand those revenue numbers. Another one, community engagement is highly, highly important to me. And I know in page 6 you talked about, page 6, public information efforts as well as current and future constituent concerns intake. Can you elaborate a little bit more on the constituent concern intake? Where if someone complains, if someone has a problem with a concert or an event or whatnot, what recourses? They're definitely going to call my office, but where does my office call and where else can they call?
Well, hopefully we'll be doing a very good job and you won't get those calls. But many of the things that the community is accustomed to, which are currently underway, which are monthly Greek Theater Advisory Committee meetings, all of those will continue. There are different events where they have direct access to the general manager. That will continue. That's been a major point of ours as well, talking with the management firms that their GM must be and will be immediately accessible to the community at all times. They plan on having a hotline for the community during events so that there's something happening during the event, that they can get a direct line to the general manager at that time and try to get the problem resolved. The department's also putting in a full-time community liaison to work with the management company and the community to make sure that we're going to all the neighborhood council meetings, we're going to all the homeowners association meetings to make sure that we're tied in and to keep an open dialogue. But all of those things will continue and hopefully be somewhat enhanced. The current operator's done a very good job with communications with the community, and we intend to do the same.
So you said a hotline number, and they could contact the general manager of the management company, or?
Yes. Well, there will be. Let me fill that in a little bit. So the team that we bring on for the management company, much like the team is now, they'll be on site at the Greek Theater 365 days. Well, with a few exceptions of holidays, things, but they'll be on site. That's where their office will be. And the access will always be there. They're going to be in the community. They're not going to be at an office building off-site. They're going to be, our offices will be run out of the Greek Theater. So the general manager, when I refer to the general manager, that's the general manager that they will hire for the Greek Theater. And that person, whoever that will be, the community will have 100% direct access to that person.
I would hope whoever the management company is that they have maybe an additional staff in addition to the general manager that could highly respond, whether it's a phone call, email, or website, or they could come in person. Because I know the general manager has a lot of other responsibilities. So if there is someone dedicated, especially for the first year or two, I think that would be a good move. And you also said there will be a community liaison from the department?
Correct.
Just for the Greek?
Just for the Greek. We'll have an office at the Greek.
So if someone in the Los Feliz area has a problem, with whatever the problem is, a problem, complaint, whatnot, they could call someone from Recs and Parks directly, a live person that they could get a hold of, right?
Correct.
As well as the management company for the Greek.
Correct.
As well as my office.
Correct.
And obviously I'll be calling you personally.
And me.
So if you could make sure, it's fully accessible every which way, email, phone, and.
You have my 100% commitment on that. I don't know. I completely get it. I completely get it. They will be 100% accessible. Most people in the community know my cell phone number as well.
And responsive.
So, and I like to think we're pretty responsive. And we will address these issues. There'll be bumps. I'm not suggesting that there's not going to be. Nothing's going to run perfectly. But we are 100% committed to taking care of making sure that the quality of life doesn't remain status quo, but actually improves. If we can do that, and there's lots of things that we're working on in the park that we're trying to make that better. But you have my 100%. I can't say anything more than I have, I'm 110% committed to that.
And I know you mentioned earlier that you said your community liaison is going to attend all the neighborhood meetings. Can we also, I don't know if we could require this from the management company.
No, we are. I'm sorry. They will be attending as well. I mean, there's a lot of dual purposes there. One, I wanted to make sure that we had it's an accountability thing to make sure that, that everybody's being responsive, and I have a direct link to, somebody that works for us that's saying that they're being responsive. That's one purpose. The other purpose is to make sure that they have that, the company that's running the Greek understands who these organizations are, as well as understands the department and the city, because in order to get some things resolved, it might be for resources outside of what's in their control, and that's what the Liaison will help them get.
Mm-hmm. Okay, because my office, we're going to have either myself or a rep trying to attend every single one of these meetings listed. So, whether it's the LFIA, the Hollywood United Neighborhood Council, Los Feliz Neighborhood Council, Franklin Hills, the Oaks, GTAC, Friends of Griffith Park. I mean, everybody and anybody. I mean, I'd love for you guys to be everywhere because when we're there and they have a question for the Greek, we'd love to have them hear from the horse's mouth and we could bear witness. So,
well, that's why we need the full-time staff. I mean, that's why that recommendation's there. Otherwise, part-time would not work.
Right. Full-time for both, not just
correct
Recs and Parks, but also the management company.
Correct.
Whoever, yeah. Okay, well, I mean, I got to say, we've had extensive discussions on this, our offices, and thank you, Mr. Chair, and fellow colleagues for entertaining this. And if everything happens to plan, I mean, it sounds very promising. And of course, the higher revenue sharing is also a great thing. It could be used for other areas. But this is all under the assumption that it's going to work well.
That's right.
I mean, I still have reservations. I still have concerns because, the city started late on the process, and I know you guys are coming with a recommendation soon. I hope we get it implemented as soon as possible so we could start making sure that it's a success. But I have reservations. My office is going to be, we're already talking almost every day, but we're going to be very keen on this issue. The community is all over this issue as well. I hope for the success, but we will be continually monitoring this.
Understood.
Terrific. Colleagues, any questions, concerns?
Yeah, just a couple of quick ones. I certainly appreciate the effort that's gone into creating this new model, or at least implementing this model here in Los Angeles. And with my colleagues, certainly want it to be as successful as possible. Could you review for us again the chronology on the RFPs, the general management piece you said has gone out. You've got a recommendation that's going to be going before the board in September. And what's happening on the food and beverage?
It's currently out for RFP as well. I think the RFPs are due
August 25th.
So next week. The RFPs the responses are due back on the food and beverage next week.
I know there was a lot of discussion about community engagement with the two proposals in the past, and I think both were pretty aggressive in terms of not only alerting the community around the venue, but also doing outreach in other parts of the city, making sure that other communities are engaging. And I hope that will also be the case with this new management structure. Any comments on that?
Well, I think that's one thing where we can drastically improve on is integrating, especially a lot of our youth around the city and creating certain, bringing a lot of the programming that we do and marrying it with some of the programming that we could do at the Greek Theater, which could help some of these kids in the lower income neighborhoods. I think that's a particular soft spot with me, and making sure that we are doing that and doing a good job of it. I'm a firm believer that we need to take our assets like this and make them available to children and families that don't have access, or whether it's a job type training program. I think there's lots of things that we can do to integrate the rest of the city, particularly in some of our lower income neighborhoods, with some possibilities of maybe they're creating a career in this industry. It's the largest industry in the,
I agree. I'm just suggesting that it be intentional, that it be not just happen to be a good output of it, but also intentionally we want to make this kind of outreach, do this kind of connect, just the things you're talking about.
Absolutely.
Make it a part of the plan and make it accountable so we can see how well we're doing. I mean,
that's right.
What the result has been. Thanks.
Mr. Blumenfield. Great.
Thank you. I appreciate your working on this important issue and appreciate the back and forth with my council colleague. There's a lot of big issues, especially with the community in the 4th District. I think it's remarkable, though, when you talk about the money-wise. I mean, if I understand it correctly, if you can get just 25% of what you're projecting for revenues, that's equivalent to what you were getting last year. I mean, that's...
Correct.
That's remarkable. I mean, if I'm hearing that correctly, so I wanted to make sure I understood that.
We've averaged over the last, I mean, and these are really round numbers, but over the last 10 years, it's been up and down, but it's been right around $1.5 million in net revenue back to the department over the last 10 years.
Right, and you're projecting 7.8
No,
million.
4.8.
4.8. Okay, so it's not 25%.
Yeah.
You're talking more 40%.
Yeah.
Still a large number. I had that number wrong, though, on that. Okay. So generally, though, today's decision, or the decision between SMG and Spectra, what was the main reason why the SMG proposal was stronger?
There was several. A few of them were the level of detail provided on the event services on the actual night of a concert per se. We thought that their response on that just was way more detailed than the other, and whereas they provided a better planning or what we thought was a better profile of what the services were needed for the night, which includes security, ushers, ticket takers, neighborhood event staff. They had a pretty significant emphasis on neighborhood event staff, which are currently, the community refers to them as yellow jackets. They had a really robust program put in place where they physically showed in their proposal where those people would be stationed during a concert, and just did a better idea of a better response. Both proposals were good. I don't want to. Unfortunately, there was only two, but and there needs to be a winner. But we just thought that there was just a notch better on that response as it pertains to the event night and planning for the actual show, because that's really where all of these issues take place. I mean, everything happens on the night of the event.
Right.
It's and we just thought that they were more prepared to take that on, and have also a little bit more experience in operating more similar type venues across the United States.
Is there a difference in what they're going to be doing as a management group vis-a-vis their proposal versus what is currently happening now in terms of management?
The difference?
Yeah.
Well, there won't be a whole lot of difference. The only difference is in the revenue share and the relationship between the contractual relationship. Again, this is a fee, really a fee-based proposal. We're paying them a fee to operate the facility on our behalf. There is a small revenue share that we've given them for sponsorships and box seats, but that is it.
In terms of the functions and all of that, I mean, obviously, you had to look at the two proposals to decide which of those two were better.
Right.
And you did that based on it, and then sort of looking at that proposal versus the existing.
The key difference also, probably the primary difference is that they won't promote. They can't promote concerts. They're forbidden to promote concerts. It's an open venue, and the reason that was intentional, we specifically put that in the first, bolded it on the front page of the RFP, is that because otherwise you're just creating another kind of exclusive operation. If you get a company in there that's also promoting, well then they've got a leg up. I mean, the idea is that we wanted to make this open to anybody, promoters, and so that is the biggest distinguishing factor between the two. They are not permitted to promote any concerts at the Greek Theater.
One last sort of small thing. It's noticed in the proposal that the taking down the digital marquees.
Well,
making them smaller.
Yeah, one of the questions in the motion, I believe, was preservation of the Greek Theater and surrounding neighborhood, and so I mean, I took that as responding to there's probably a lot of rumors of what we're going to be doing. I know some people believe, for example, that we cut those trees down to make room for an expansion. I mean, we had nothing to do with cutting those trees down. So there is no plans for an expansion. There are no plans to add seats. We do have to repair the seats that are there. There's a lot of deferred maintenance on those seats, so we've hired an engineer to come up with the structural, so we're going to be adding some new supports underneath those seats. They are fine as they currently are, but we feel that they need to be addressed for the near future. And then one of the things that I added in there was kind of the preservation of the front facade, and part of that is removing the marquee off of the front facade and putting a smaller marquee on the box office building, which is not an historical building. So we thought that was more in line with the preservation of the building. Of course, there'll be painting and general things like that, but those are the major components of what we're looking at as doing improvements.
Great, thank you very much.
Yep.
Mr. Rivera.
Just kind of two quick questions. Might be City Attorney. Based on what the council member was asking, can you re-elaborate about, because there's some concerns from the community or confusion that the previous management company, Nederlander, was disqualified from becoming the management company. Can you, and you were talking about how you could be only one or the other. Can you comment a little bit on that?
Well, to say that there was conversations early on about what their interests were going forward in the venue, and the RP was structured in a way that we wanted to make sure that whoever was managing it managed several venues similar to the Greek Theater, and in order to do that, they needed to have a pretty robust portfolio. So yes, in that light, they weren't forbidden, they just didn't necessarily qualify underneath that. However, there were discussions early on about their interest level in that, but those roads went to a dead end. There was those discussions never went any further than that. So we decided to go down the path which we did, which was to bring on a management company. And that's, at this point, that's the decision. And right now, the current operator, Nederlander, has put in, I don't know how many applications, probably over 100 applications for talent for next year.
So if you promote events at the Greek, you can't be the management company. Correct. It's one or the other.
That's correct.
And it's your understanding Nederlander would prefer to promote events, or?
Well, being that they didn't accept any of my requests to have those discussions, I had assumed that they wished to promote, and I moved on with the direction that's before the board, or before this committee today.
So maybe the city attorney could comment on this one. There's also some confusion about why the Recs and Parks opened up calendaring, because you said Nederlander applied for calendar for events. Mm-hmm. Can you explain how the board motion the council motion that was accepted in June, what it entailed, and why Recs and Parks went with the calendaring?
The motion in June?
The council motion to accept this plan.
That was in April.
In April, I'm sorry, in April.
Yeah. I'm sorry, yeah, that was in April. So the open venue, it was just a natural step to take place in the open venue. It was just to begin the process, much like doing the RFP. So once the board approved the RFP and it was heard before City Council, and the board action stood, then we just continued on with the natural progression of.
And Recs and Parks had the authority to do the calendaring? Because it's the management company who was supposed to do the calendaring, right?
Management company works for us, so their authority lies with us. So it's their contract will be structured in a way that they will take over the current calendaring. But we thought it was in our best interest to begin the calendaring as soon as we thought we were ready to begin to allowing the different promoters to begin putting in, hold, basically what they are is applications for hold dates for artists. And like I said, we've got 259 applications. Many of those are duplicate. They're duplicates because there might be one artist might have 5 applications, for multiple dates, but they're only going to play one date. But we just felt it was in our best interest to get that out there as soon as we could, to get, interest in knowing that, there's going to be a Greek season, and that, we wanted to make sure that was known. It was widely successful.
So which promotion companies apply for the most dates? Top 3.
Live Nation, Nederlander, and AEG.
Do you know how many they applied each?
I don't know where we stand today. I think most of the applications I mean, we can get the amount, but I think most of them currently stand by in the order of Live Nation, Nederlander, and AEG.
Can you give us how many dates they applied for and how many they got?
Well, we can't tell you. I mean, we can only tell you a lot of them are just hold dates, so they're not. It's not whether they got it or not. We have 3 shows that went to contract already. So there's 3 executed contracts for 3 shows next year, but we're not at liberty to share that because the talent hasn't announced their tour yet. So we're not able to share that information. But
so the hold dates.
Yeah, so we can give you the number of holds that each of them have.
Okay. Oh, and just to clarify, Councilmember, we're not deciding on the management contract today. It's just the report back.
Terrific. All right, thank you so much, Mike and Vicki, for this report. And we have several comment cards. We have 9. And I know that there's also going to be a Budget and Finance Committee meeting at 2. However, since everyone's been waiting so long, I don't want to limit you to 1 minute. But if you can deliver your comments in under 2 minutes, it's appreciated, but you have 2-minute limit. And we're going to start with Arthur Rubenstein, followed by Joanne Yannick Garb, followed by Rena Wasserman, and then Shannon N.
Good morning, gentlemen. I'm Arthur Rubenstein. I'm the music director of Symphony in the Glen. We have worked for the past 21 years with Department of Recreation and Parks, so this is not a rap on rap. We have also worked for the past 6 years with the Nederlanders, and this is not necessarily a shout out for the Nederlanders. 6 months ago, the City Council turned down the RFP that was poured over for about a year and a half. The fuel and the ignition for turning this down came from a community that was in, I should say, total disagreement, total revulsion at the process by which that RFP was handled. That was handled by many people, felt it was handled at best ineptly, at worst it was rigged. And so 6 months ago, everybody breathed a sigh of relief. The council turned down that RFP with the recommendation that a year was taken to create a new RFP. At that point, the sky opened and a new plan appeared from Recreation and Parks that was done in light speed, in sonic speed. In a couple of months, there was a new set of RFPs. And again, the community is in almost unanimous disapproval of the way this was handled and the community input that supposedly took place. It did not take place. I present a major concert every year at the Greek Theater. I just found out today who one of the proposed management companies were. I would recommend we take a year to allow RAP to demonstrate how their revenue sharing is going to be better, to demonstrate how they will improve upon the concert management, to show that their expertise and their expertise and experience with concert management is going to be better than what is there. Thank you.
Thank you. Joanne Yannick Gareb, followed by Rena Wasserman.
Joanne Yannick Garb, West Hills Neighborhood Council and Budget Advocate. I like to confuse the issue with facts and numbers. And I just got some numbers that I did very quickly. There are 5,700 seats at the Greek Theater. You have 70 nights tentatively of shows. And at $65, because the tickets range from $30 to $100 plus. So I just averaged it at $65 a ticket. That's an income of almost $26 million. And they're saying that the city's going to give $5 million. However, now they're throwing in that the seats have to be reinforced. There's maintenance that has to be done. Who's going to take care of the maintenance? Certainly not a company that's only got a 1-year contract. That maintenance is going to be done by the city. And our city is so good at maintaining our infrastructure that I don't see this happening. So that's a very important point that you have to take into consideration. I had the opportunity last fall to compare the Nederlander proposal to the Live Nation proposal and what they were going to do, how they were going to, both companies were going to upgrade the Greek theater. So, you're going and you're saying, okay, we're going to get $5 million, but we've got a piece of property that's going to keep degenerating and degenerating because the city does not have the money to update the facility. Thank you.
Thank you. Rena Wasserman, then Shannon, and followed by Angela Stewart. Come on up, and Barbara Ferris. Come on up.
Good afternoon. I am Rena Wasserman, the current general manager of the Greek. I'm speaking on my own behalf today, not the Nederlander Company. I want to thank David Rue and Mitch O'Farrell for bringing this motion to the table and showing your concern for the constituents of Los Angeles. I, too, am very concerned for the community as the future plans for the Greek come to light. I have personally spent the last 10 years nurturing the relationship between the Greek and the surrounding neighborhood, and I care very deeply about the future of this wonderful, iconic venue. It still is baffling to me why the recent RFP for the management of the venue was written in such a way that boutique operators would not qualify to respond. Nederlander has run the venue successfully for 40 years and yet was unqualified. Something doesn't make sense there. From the RAP response to today's motion, it appears that the goal is to really not change the way in which the building is run. In fact, using vendors I have trained over the years. This simply takes my job away from me. I find it interesting that as a facelift of sorts is quietly being worked on, that it is with many of the same vendors that Live Nation used in their response to the RFP. With regard to the question of the terraces, it seems that perhaps a third-party opinion might be in order. When you have one structural engineer that says there's nothing wrong with them and another that says they should be torn down, it seems to me that a third opinion would be the smart move in that circumstance. I understand wanting more money, which seems to be the hope for the city, but it is just that, a hope. This is an expensive venue to run smoothly. Previously, the city had no risk and no expenses. Where you might have $27 million coming in as gross receipts, do you really think artists are not paid? Do you think sound and lighting cost nothing? Do you think the staffs who are paid the City of Los Angeles living wage are not being paid? There's not that much money in this building. In closing, I would just like to say that this seems like a very risky experiment with the taxpayers as the primary guinea pigs. Be careful what you wish for.
Thank you, Ms. Wasserman. Shannon N.
Hi, I'm a community member and a neighbor to the Greek, and I would first like to thank Councilman Rio for doing this motion. It's really important to us in the community that we see your support. It feels like there's been a lack of transparency to the community. I don't feel that these council meetings are the right venue or avenue to get information out to the community, and we feel strongly overlooked. When you have 30,000 people voting on a change.org to keep Nederlander, that's a lot of people asking for status quo, which you don't always have. And it sends a strong message to us that we don't matter. And from the current RAP process, the transparency hasn't been there. We haven't seen the support. We don't feel like we're being heard. And we've all been a part of enough projects to know there's a lot of rhetoric in the beginning. There's a lot of promises. There are a lot of budgets that will be blown out and won't matter. And that's what it feels like is happening. Because if this is for the community, then the 30,000 votes on change.org alone would have spoken for itself. What we want hasn't been heard by RAP. I feel like the council is trying to hear us and trying to support us, but for whatever reason, something else is winning the day. Money, I suppose. But again, if it's about the community at all, we have to think about the ticket prices and things like that. I understand the average ticket price now will be $70. That's a lot of money. Now the average ticket is somewhere around $56. And it's a significant drop for people. I just ask that you remember that when you make this change, this is more than just a venue. It's music, it's spirit, it's the spirit of the Los Feliz community. And thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. we'll have Angela Stewart and Barbara Ferris, and then Denny Rabineau, come on up, and Ron Caruso, my apologies. Come on up and have a seat. Angela Stewart.
Angela Stewart here. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your concern and commitment regarding the open venue plan for the iconic Greek theater. The plan that Recreation and Parks has presented leaves a lot to be desired. The Greek theater presently provides an enormous amount of funds for the parks. Putting this iconic venue in jeopardy is out of the question. I am deeply concerned over the public financial figures Recreation and Parks has presented so far. I would like to see RAP provide pro forma numbers on income expenses. The present numbers they're presenting to the public so far has no foot in reality, and they only speak of revenue. It's like expenses do not exist. Gentlemen, please continue your oversight on this plan and continue to listen to the community's concerns. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Barbara Ferris.
Thank you. First, I would just want to thank our council member, David Rue, for putting this through, and thank you for seconding it and for hearing it today. There are many concerns, a couple of housekeeping things. First of all, Greater Wilshire Neighborhood Council and the LA Budget Advocates both have done community impact statements on this, so those will be coming to you. They may not be on the file yet, but they will be coming to you. I can also answer a question that came before about Eke at the Greek, because I'm the managing director of Symphony in the Glen. And the question was, does the nonprofit make any money on doing Eke at the Greek or any of the other things? All I can tell you is that Nederlander has operated at a loss for Eke at the Greek for many years as a public service, and we have never made money on any of it. So we have to raise all the subsequent money. So nobody's making money on the community concerts, I can assure you. Now I'm going to put on my Los Feliz Improvement Association hat, and I am the second vice president. Our president is away traveling, so he asked me to come down and speak with you. I just want to address a couple of main things here. In the portion of the report that you saw today, in the area where it talks about the plan for public, so far what's been done on public outreach, the report says that there were 22 public hearings. I just want some reality here. The bulk of those meetings were 12 and 20 miles away in Encino and south of here. And they were during work hours, and they were not, it was not possible for many people to come and see them, to come and see and address and hear. Also, I just want to let you know that the informational meeting that was mentioned was by invitation by one of the RAP staff, and we were allowed 2 people apiece. It was not an open meeting. So just a little bit of that. And also, I would like to just turn this in, if I could. This is what a pro forma looks like. This is what has been offered to you.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. And we'll take a look at that. Thank you, Ms. Ferris. And then we have Denny Rabineau, followed by Ron Caruso, and then Constantine Vlahos and Eric Rojan. Come on up, gentlemen. Denny. Denny
Thank
Rabineau.
you. My name is Denny Rabineau. I was born in Los Angeles and lived here since 1945. I'm a big concert goer, and I'm a tremendous fan of the Greek theater. I've been going to concerts for the last 30, 40 years. I just love being part of it, or being there when it's all participating. And of all the venues I've been to, the Fonda across the street, or the Hollywood Bow, or the new ones that have come up in Staples, whatever, Nederlander has always been, in my opinion, my favorite. They care about the residents there. And since I've been here for almost 70 years, and since I've been here for 70 years, I feel that I have something to say. And since I saw something on my computer the other day, it says "Save the Greek," I said maybe I should spend a couple hours and say something on behalf of the Greek. I have no paperwork in front of me, and I'm quite nervous right now, but I'll stop before the 2 minutes, I promise you.
No worries.
I want to say that as far as crowd control, the Greek has never let me down. I'm going there this Sunday to see a concert with my oldest grandson, 8 years old. First time he's going to a concert, and I feel so comfortable going to the Greek with him because they have people every 2 blocks. Every block, they have 4 people directing traffic. Crowd control is terrific. Everybody is friendly to the patrons that go there, and I have never seen anything like that in another venue that felt so family-oriented. So I just wanted to throw my 2 cents in as a person that's lived here 70 years, 1945, and say I want to thank the Nederlander people for having participated in the Greek for all these years, and I hope you understand that loyalty counts, and I hope you continue with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rabineau. Thanks for making the time to come in. We really appreciate hearing from people. And I cannot believe you're 70. You're very youthful, very, very youthful. Thank you. And then we're going to have Ron Caruso, followed by Konstantin Vlahos, and then Eric Grohan. I'm sorry for butchering your name. My apologies.
Good afternoon. Ron Caruso. I've lived in the neighborhood since 1961 when my dad purchased the house in Los Feliz. We're only a block off of Vermont Canyon, which is just a couple of blocks before the park entrance. So, yes, we do get to see all the traffic. Of course, have all the parking of the vehicles in front of the house, and it's really not a problem with Nederlander. I mean, they've done a very good job as far as community liaison, taking care of everything. If there's ever a problem, they're always there. I know a few times, even in the past, people want to come tailgate out in the street and start up a barbecue, but that's quickly been put down. I guess the main thing that I'm saying is all the neighbors that I've gotten to know over the years, they're all just awestruck. They can't believe that somebody wants to change something that's been working all these years. And to see that you're going to bring in somebody new, if it's not broken, why change it? They've been a great support to us and the neighbors. I mean, I feel that Rena and her staff, they're actually friends and family. They're not just somebody else that's running an operation. And we're concerned, we want to keep them there. And instead of babbling on, I wish you guys would have really listened to the neighbors and waited a little bit more instead of really counting on neighbors as whatever small percentage it was and listening to everybody in LA instead of really the direct community that really is affected by it. So appreciate whatever you can do and keep Nederlander there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Caruso. Konstantin Vlahos, followed by Eric. I won't even try your last name. My apologies. And then Alan Erdy.
Hi, I'm Konstantin.
Hi.
David Rue, thank you for presenting this motion. This is my first time ever coming downtown to speak on behalf of anything, living in LA 18 years now. I lived in Dundee Drive, which is just a block or two away from the Greek Theater for 15 years. And I think it's a treasure of the city of Los Angeles. And I don't understand what possible qualifications Park and Recs have to be running the Greek Theater. Why is no one talking about that issue? What qualifications?
Just address your comments to us, please.
Sorry?
Just address your comments to us.
Okay. What possible qualifications do they have to run a venue? It's patently absurd. It's like I feel like I'm in the twilight zone that this thing has even dragged on the way it has, the way things has progressed. The community came out in such force for these hearings that took place down on Riverside Drive that there was lines around this building. We couldn't get in to listen and be part of that discussion, so we had to go home. That was my experience, at least. So this has an enormous community support and passion behind it, and for the Parks Department to pull this boondoggle shenanigans they're doing here, it floors me. I'm floored by how this has played out. I don't know all the details, but I just know that it does not smell good. And I hope that the council will take a very, very close look at it and give the Nederlander people a chance to continue what they've done so brilliantly for the 15 years that I've witnessed them and lived in the neighborhood. So thank you for letting me speak, and thank you, David Rue.
Thank you, Mr. Vlahos. Eric, followed by Alan.
Hi, I'm Eric Rochon. I'm a community member. I've got some concerns about the RFP process to begin with. As a community member, we never really got word of what was happening, not only with the first version of the RFP, but now with this second version where the Park and Rec is going to go forward and take control of the venue. I feel like a lot of information's been left out, some stuff that Angela brought up regarding the other side of revenues expense. Where's the pro forma? Where's the validation? Why don't we have those critical pieces of information in front of us to really fully vet whether the Department of Park, Rec and Park is a viable candidate to run this venue? It seems like all we've done and all that's been shown is that there are going to be better revenue numbers. There are going to be greater percentages based on the old contract. I don't see any analysis of what Rec and Parks is going to do versus what the proposed RFPs were from Nederlander and from Live Nation. I don't see how Rec and Parks is going to be able to really live up and serve that venue properly and serve the community properly. Living on Commonwealth, recently they've decided to open the Commonwealth gates, and their version of traffic management right now is to let all the cars go until they stop. And then they stop and they back up, and it looks like those old Beechwood Canyon photos where our entire street is full of cars. We can't get in, we can't get out. It takes my neighbors over a half hour to get up Commonwealth. So to feel like they're going to be able to adequately take care of us in the community, I just don't have any faith in it. So, my feeling is to extend the Nederlanders for another year, to give this opportunity a chance to really vet out, to show us the numbers, to show us the proof, to show us the qualifications so we can move forward properly.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I've been to most of the meetings.
And sir, you're Alan Erdy?
Alan Erdy, yeah.
Thank you.
I've been to most of the meetings. I'm a local businessman. I live in the area. And I join everybody else in commending Nederlander for the job that they've done. I have been a subscriber to the Greek Theater this is my 40th season. I think Rena here can attest to the fact that I am one of the earliest subscribers. I've been to, today is Monday, in the last 7 days, I've been to 5 shows at the Greek Theater, and I'm going tonight as well. So it'll be 6 shows out of 7 days, actually. Going to the Greek Theater and going to a show is like going home, going to see a lot of friends. Everybody there is so friendly. I bring all my friends, all my customers, I'm in, let's say in a business, and rather than take them to lunch or dinner, I get them tickets to the Greek Theater. And a lot of these people have never been to the Greek Theater before, and I get thank yous, and people go back again and again and again. I've been ordering tickets as a subscriber for many, many years. I can't afford to go to, when it was here, the Universal Amphitheater, or the Hollywood Bowl for many of the shows, because I can't afford to spend 2, 3, 4 times the face value of the tickets, which pretty much Live Nation is getting and a lot of the others get, in order to go and get a decent seat at the show. There's not fairness in the ticketing. Nederlander has been very fair about this, and I haven't heard one word from anybody as far as how this new management company is going to handle the ticketing. Are all of the people that have been subscribing on the list with the Nederlanders going to be forgotten? Do we start from scratch again? And I got to say, they have done a wonderful job, and it's like, there's a reason that I go there all the time, and a lot of people go there. And you guys just were not listening to everybody when they were speaking at all these meetings, and I think you got to open your ears and listen a little bit more.
Thank you. Mr. Soul, could I ask you a question? What about that existing ticket subscription list that Mr. Erdy just mentioned?
We made a request, I think at least a month ago, if not several months ago, for requests to begin to sort that out. We fully intend on working with the Nederlanders to continue as much of that as we can, but we need the data in order to do that.
And is that data that is legally required to turn over to us? Do you know?
I don't believe it's legally required, no.
Okay. But that's data that you've requested so that we
Yes.
can continue during this?
We need to engage the season ticket holders, and to date, we've not been able to do that, but it's on the, it's high on the one of the priorities of the management firms, of SMG's company is to get that sorted out as soon as possible.
And at what point would be the cutoff date if you don't have that? When do people like Mr. Erdy just lose out?
I don't know that I could give you a date, like you know, obviously the sooner the better, you know, to give more time to sort those things out. Because we, although, you know, he testified today, but there's thousands or hundreds of others that we don't know who they are.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Mr.
Yeah, first off, I really want to thank the community for taking time out. I mean, Maestro Rubenstein, Ms. Ferris, Ms. Stewart, other members of the community. I mean, today was a longer meeting. Thank you for sitting through it and providing your testimony. And I, too, had the same concerns. I mean, I've been in office for about a month and a half now. And during the campaign 6 months ago, 3 months ago, I had the same concerns. And I was wondering why, if it ain't broken, why fix it? And I thought that we could, I mean, I was hoping, I was not in office. I did not have any authority. And there were several council members who tried to delay the decision. But unfortunately, it didn't happen. What happened, happened. And you know, the question about the Eek at the Greek, the reason I had that question was because I was told that the new management company, whoever comes in, they're also thinking that they could possibly create a profit for the nonprofits. So these are questions that need to be more vetted out, more answered. And, you know, while you're up here, Mike, I just wanted to ask, you know, there's still a lot of confusion. Who is going to run the Greek? Or I know you guys have the managing authority, but who's going to run the Greek's day-to-day operations?
Our recommendation is for the company called SMG, who was the highest ranked proposer on our recent RFP to manage the oversight of the Greek.
So Rex and Parks will not be running the Greek?
No. It'll be done through, it'll be done as our, SMG as our agent will be operating the Greek.
And the biggest question, there's a lot of where my office is getting, I'm getting a lot of emails from folks asking to delay the process for a year. And let the current operator operate for one more year till we could vet out the RFP a little bit further. Is that possible at this point?
I don't believe it is, no.
Right, so if you could elaborate on that answer a little bit more. I know we've had many discussions about this as well, so
This was. Yeah. Let me elaborate. So this was vetted very deeply at the April 28th council committee meeting, and of course, understanding you were not in office at that time. And what I reported is that it was the contract the contract expires at the end of October. It's been extended several times already, and that I didn't believe, and nor did our commission believe, that it was in our best interest to continue extending the contract when we had other options before us that could yield higher revenue numbers. And that was the reason.
And just to go through the timeline, I think...
And Mr. Rule, we're going to wrap it up.
Yeah, I'll wrap it up quick. Yeah, I'll make it real quick. I just wanted to... I think we do need a better timeline, as Councilmember Curran Price has asked for. But just April 28th was when the council voted on it, and just for the record, April.
Well, they didn't actually. It wasn't a vote. I mean, it was a hearing.
Right.
There was nothing. It was. Yeah. I mean, it was not a actual vote of the city council at that meeting, I believe.
Oh, right. It was right. The Rex and Parks Board voted on it.
Yeah, there was a request by members of the city council for us to come in, similar to what we're doing today, to come in and report on the open venue model, and that's what we did.
And just for the community to be aware, and then the city council, some members tried to do a 245, right?
That option was at the table
back then.
At that time for the board action that took place on April 15th, which was approving the open venue model.
And that's when I believe members of the community came in hundreds to testify.
Yes.
But the 245 did not happen.
That's correct.
And even if we wanted a 245 and now, is that possible?
Not under the rules of the city charter. It's not.
Right. because you have 5 meetings from the decision.
You always have, but it always, the city council has the right to 245 any action of any committee, or commission, a commission in the city. So any action that our board meets every 2 weeks, there could be anything in any one of those board actions.
So even if I wanted to 245 it, I can't.
Currently there's nothing to 245.
Right.
There's no actions by our commission. As I stated, that I'm planning, the goal is to bring this contract to our commission on September 2nd. For a vote. It would be, if we do in fact take that, then that is something that option is available.
So clearly, I mean, I did have concerns when I was running in the campaign as well, about concerns about transparency and community engagement, the need for proper community engagement. So, Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask if we could receive and file the report today, but actually there's a lot more questions that were risen, so if we could continue it for another 2 weeks.
We'll continue the item. We'll keep it, keep it in committee. But let me I have to say something for the record, because the whole initial awarding of the contract was handled through this committee, and I will disagree with you. There was a thorough, I'm not saying that it made constituents happy, but there was a thorough, transparent process that this committee really owned up to in the whole entire, it was very controversial in terms of Rec and Parks. The commission recommended a different operator. This committee rejected that recommendation. I think it was a 4-1 vote. And then, the story continued. But hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, constituents, were involved throughout the entire process. As has been stated, after that point, the idea to have Rec and Parks actually take a season or two and take a stab at running the venue itself, that's when that idea came through, because the city council, I think at that point, wasn't prepared to award the contract to any one entity, nor extend the contract additionally to Nederlanders. So, but I have to rebut that the process wasn't transparent, when indeed it was very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I want to make sure, just to make it clear, I want to amend the motion. We could receive this report, but there's a lot more questions that came up, and I'd love to have it if they could come back in 2 weeks.
We'll continue this in committee, and we'll meet. We meet every 2 weeks, so we'll continue this. I know that the time is sensitive, but within that, when did you say the commission is meeting?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to clarify, because I want to be respectful to the questions Councilmember Rue is asking. A lot of what, I just want to make sure that I'm not misleading you, that, our intention is to move forward with the management company's contract. If it doesn't happen on September 2nd, which is our goal, it would only be, it would only because we need a little bit more time to get the contract in order, but it definitely would happen sometime in September, and I just want to make sure that, the more I get, once I get them under contract, it'll help us actually define a lot of these questions a little easier and a little better. Currently, they're here only because they want to be here. They're not here because I can tell them to be here. So I just want to make sure that I'm under the same understanding that there's, I don't want to appear disrespectful or like I'm not listening. It's the next step in this process is all.
So we'll keep it open, Mr. Rue, and we'll get information as soon as we possibly can related to this contract.
I just mentioned one last thing for the record. We will be working with Recs and Parks and working with the community to have, obviously there's still confusion, so we're going to facilitate a meeting with the community, and we've already spoken on that, and we'll try to schedule those as soon as possible as well.
Absolutely.
I think it's a very good idea.
Absolutely.
Thank you. All right, so we'll hold this in committee, and we'll hear from you again on this. Thank you. We do have one general public comment card, but I know that Craig Collins has left the room. And if he's not within earshot, then we will adjourn this meeting. Thank you.